Want to drive faster? Listen in as Kinch Rendell, an SCCA National Trophy winner and multi-time Pro Solo champion himself, interviews the best autocrossers in the land. He talks fast and drives even faster. And now here's your host, Kinch Rendell.
Hello. I've got to start this podcast out with a little tip, a little bonus here for you to save some time. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've realized you can speed it up, at least in the iTunes app, to speed 1.5 is what I like, so I can listen to a lot of people much faster than they're actually talking. Just think how many more of these you can listen to. And for me, I will listen to things 2 and 3 times sometimes, maybe because I'm listening so fast, but really just so I can pick up some of their points or reinforce it. So this is part 2 with Sam Strano. We left off with GT3, the Porsche talk. Guess what? He would like one. So he's going to cover some things here, from some of his favorite memories to the setup for Corvettes, the setup for a Focus ST. He covers his thoughts on the course Kevin Youngers made for Nationals in 2011. And I'm laughing because you would have never thought Kevin would have designed the course. You would have thought Andy Hollis designed that one. I swear they must have gotten together and swapped their thoughts there. And we get around to hearing about how he ended up in the parts business. It sounded like from the first part of the interview that he'd always been in the parts business, so you'll hear more about that as well. Also remember, it's SamStranoPart2.mp3, and he notes you can get anything, or he can get you any parts that Summit Racing has. So when you get a chance and you think, oh, Summit Racing has that part, check out Sam. Give him a call or email him and see, can he also get you that? I really would like for us to know who else in this community has a business that relates to something we do at all and support them. Once again, I appreciate Sam coming on. It was great to get, as he said, 3 shows. We actually got 2 here, 2 pretty long ones. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys do too. Definitely share with us on Facebook what you like. We're up to almost 700 likes. You guys have been knocking it out of the park this year with either sharing the show and liking it on Facebook. It's been incredible. Thank you for the support. Oh, some of you have wanted more information on setup, and Sam talks a bit about some setup and that he would change his shocks for race tires versus street tires and such. And I hope to follow back up with specific shows just on setup. So if you have specific questions on setup, somebody's asked about shocks, if they should be remote reservoir versus not, send those thoughts and questions to me either on Facebook and or through the website contact form. And what I hope to do is circle back with people and have them do some shows just where they will talk about setup or what they believe and try or would try for you. So definitely ask those questions so we can get those answered for you. Thanks again for listening. Tell me, what GT4, have you driven them? What do you think about those?
No, looks awesome on paper. That's a really cool car. And as a matter of fact, I was on the track with one the other day on Sunday and wasn't particularly well driven. Couldn't believe how fast it was, missing apexes and, things like that. Even in a straight line, I was in a C6 Z06, pounding down a pretty good amount of power, a little down on power probably to my car because the lovely gasoline that they call premium out here at 91 octane sucks. But still, that thing was a rocket in a straight line. It didn't surprise me that Keith Brown did as well as he did at Nationals. And I was announcing for you guys. So, in between when I could look up from the timing screen, I was watching what was going on, and the car looks, Keith's obviously a hell of a driver, a couple championships in the Miata and stuff. It looks awesome. I think, I don't know if it'll ever be worth what a GT3 is worth down the road because, Porsche GT cars always seem to appreciate. But I also know there's these Porsche 911 purists that kind of look down their noses at things like Caymans and Boxsters. And but I look at that and go, I don't know. That, GT3 front, what is it? The GT3 front suspension, I think, with a new rear suspension and, the 3.8 motor. I'm like, God, that thing's mid-engine. I'm like, that'd be awesome.
That's what I've heard. Tom Berry said it doesn't suck. I'll tell you this much: it doesn't suck.
Oh yeah, and Tom would be a very good judge of what doesn't suck. So, yeah, I don't know. I haven't driven one. I kind of can't wait to. I've been lucky enough with all the schools and stuff to drive kind of a lot of cool cars that I probably wouldn't have gotten a chance to drive otherwise. Like some Ferraris and things, but. Some of them are a lot better than I imagined. Some of them are a lot worse than I imagined. But any of those, I haven't driven a GT3 that was stock or stock-ish, that I got out of and went, that's horrible. I don't ever want to drive that again. So yeah, you just make sure you keep your co-driver happy.
Yeah. I don't actually think it's going to happen this next year. I don't think he thinks it's going to be the case. He likes to jump.
Kinch, I tell you what, if you want Kinch out, Salil, you call me. You know my number.
I'm supposed to be getting my Civic in the shop this week. It may really happen, so I can. That's what's crazy. He never understood why I would drive a Civic. Kept saying, "Why don't you drive something nicer?" I'm like, "Well, I know how to do this, and I'm competitive, and I can win." And honestly, that's worth more to me than driving any other car, at least long term.
Yeah.
And
that used to be it for me. And then somewhere along the way, I think you and I are, the same age. I'm 43. And somewhere along the way, I'm just kind of like, if it's close enough and it's in the noise, it's fine. Of course, I don't know. After this year, I'm kind of like grumbling, going, God damn it. I mean, I won a lot of events. I've won a lot of events in the car. I can't complain. I certainly am not going to blame the car for losing to Grant or losing to Brian in terms of, like, the car sucked and it was horrible and everything else. I made my bed. Sometimes it benefits me. Sometimes it doesn't. I actually traded. I had a black. You may remember I had a black Z06 for a couple of years. I traded it for a Grand Sport because, the gearing was so much better. And, it was kind of early on when the Grand Sports were out and nobody really understood. They look the same from the outside. It's very obvious to look at it and say, well, it doesn't have an LS7, but it's a steel frame car. And none of those are really the problem. The problem ended up being the Grand Sport has a Z51 front spring, but it's got a Z06 rear spring and rear sway bar, which is big, really big. And what happened was very simple. There were times the front spring was so soft on paper. And again, this is one of these reality versus, paper things. On paper, the front spring, depending on where you read, including from Chevrolet, is only somewhere between 10 and 40 pounds softer than the Z06 spring. But if you ever watch them on course, you will notice the Grand Sports, when they slam on the brakes, like dive really badly and scrape the front spoiler under the car. Oh, yeah. They do the same thing in roll. So pretty quickly what we realized, and I spent 2011 in one, but I was the only one in one. I was kind of off on an island of my own, and Matthew and I were battling and trading off event wins when he was in the Elise. And everything was great right up until day 2 at Nationals when, Youngers, God love them, built some ridiculous go-kart course that, had Formula Junior beating Superstock by 3 seconds. And then, and Matthew put 1.4 on me, and I finished second. And literally, after one run, Matthew walked up to me and went, "I'm sorry." And the funny part is, people think Matthew and I hate each other, I guess because we're competitive. And we don't. We're actually pretty damn friendly. And, the car's different. What I didn't realize at the time after I traded, when I traded my Z06 for one, was that front spring was that much different. And in setting up cars, we run I run a hollow 33 millimeter front sway bar that I make on the Corvettes, and almost all the C5s run it, and all the C6Es run it. But the Grand Sport, we actually run a solid 35 millimeter bar because we have to make up for the front spring. Wow. And in the midst of running that car, I had done all kinds of things. I even went out and bought MCSs. I bought a $4,000+ set of MCSs. I'm a dealer for them, so it wasn't quite as bad, but it still hurt. I bought remote doubles, gas pressure. I said, look, shocks aren't springs. They're not meant to be used as springs, but it's a stock class car, and I'm in a bind. And I had even gone up to a T1 front bar, which is 38.1 millimeters. In fact, it's the same bar that Matthew has on his car. I couldn't even make the Grand Sport turn on the stupid thing the way I drive. Matthew likes to run it all the time. Great. Horses for courses. Problem is the car would roll so much that literally I had pictures of my inside rear tire off the ground. Ooh. So when you're in a sport where you're trying to accelerate out of a corner and you made a trade from a Z06 to a Grand Sport to get 12% shorter gearing, when the rear tire is dangling in the air sometimes, or even when it's not in the air, it's just that lightly loaded, I was getting a ton of wheel spin that I couldn't accelerate. The giant front bar pretty much cured it, except all of a sudden what started happening was very apparent. First runs, I would be ballistic. And I'm usually pretty good on first runs anyway. I'm pretty fast. I mean, I would say of all the events I've won, it wouldn't surprise me if 75% of those events I would have won on my first run. But as soon as we got into second and third runs, I get swamped.
Huh.
And the last time it happened was Spring Nationals in, I guess it was 2014, maybe. And I can't remember who was working the course, but it's somebody I know. It might have been Tom Reynolds. Somebody I know and I kind of, I trust. They walked up to me, and they're like, there was a slalom and a 180 or something. I don't remember exactly. And they're like, man, you were killing it down that slalom. And I'm like, great. How did I end up fourth or fifth or whatever I ended up? And they're like, oh, well, that's easy. Like everybody else was way faster through the 180 afterward. And what happened is pretty simple. I had a 2-driver car, that big rim discrepancy I was telling you about. Mm-hmm. The Corvette, it's a big motor, blasts a lot of heat onto the front tires. As soon as the tires got any heat in them at all, they just gave up. And the big front bar was just far too much for them to handle. So then I went, crap, okay, this doesn't work. So I had to go back to the Solid 35, the one I actually produce now. That's when I tried the shocks to try and prop the front of the car up, with shock. That was an epic fail. Or it was no worse than the Conies, but it was also no better, except it was a lot more money. So I eventually, after pissing them for a while, and even trying the stock front bar with a ballistic amount of shock and a smaller rear bar to try and get the car to put power down better, I just realized this isn't the way to go, and I sold those shocks off. I beat my head against the wall. When I got thumped at Spring Nationals that year, I literally left Lincoln. I made Mike drive, and he goes, and I never do that, drive home. And he goes, why? And I'm like, because I'm looking for a car. And I immediately got online, and I started looking for Z06s. And it cost me a fortune because I bought my Grand Sport. It was a leftover car, but it was brand new. So I got a decent deal on it, but it was still a new car with all that depreciation. I got smacked hard to get back to a Z06, but there was some. I mean, on the street, the LS7 is just a riot to drive anyway. It makes you giggle like an idiot. The LS3 is really fun down low, and then by the time it's around 5,000 RPM, I'm kind of like going, eh. But yeah, that's one of those things. So on paper, you look at the cars and go, well, they're the same car. Just one steel frame, one's not, and one in the gearing and motor difference. But it's completely different actually when you actually get to driving them. So they're competitive, they can win, but it has a lot to do with how you drive them. And I'm pretty aggressive, and I'm usually, if I look at data traces to other people, I'm usually, and I know Peters says this too, and he's probably right, given his results. I'm usually one of the first ones back to the throttle. And when I'm in a corner, if the diff doesn't work or the car's dangling a rear wheel, no bueno.
Yeah, that's
so,
well.
Yeah, so people who maybe don't drive quite like that or drive differently, and I'm very much, by the way, a believer in momentum. People look at this car or that car or whatever else. I don't drive a Corvette any differently, like line-wise or anything like that, than I would drive a Miata. Momentum's not free. I don't care how much horsepower you have, and grip is grip, and the limit's the limit. So, Civics are the same way. I mean, it wouldn't really matter what I'm in. I don't really drive any different lines or, maybe very occasionally if, with a mountain of power and a really, really long straightaway, I might light apex something a little more in a Corvette. But, it's one of those lessons. Like, been autocrossing a long time and, had a lot of good results and still, well, that's a mistake. Live and learn. And C5s don't have that problem. So
how much data?
More power to you guys who own them.
So how much data you look at, and did you do a lot of video before data was around?
I don't look at much. I mean, we run it. The problem is you have to. I don't think data is very useful to a single driver or even a double driver if the other driver is not basically the same speed. I look at it occasionally, not so much at nationals because, you're kind of pressed for time and all that stuff. But Mike on occasion will, beat me through a section or something. But unless I have a lot of time to go looking for it, I don't really, think much of it. And sometimes he beats me through things just because, like, maybe he wasn't as fast through the corner before, so I carried more speed, and then I had to bleed off speed in the middle of a corner that he didn't, that kind of thing. Where it has helped a lot is, like, with Shelley and I. We have more time to look at it, especially and it works both ways, actually. Unfortunately, a couple years ago at Nationals, and I can't remember what year it was, but there was a corner, like there was this giant 180 in the middle of the course. It was on the east course, and it was a right hand 180. And what I've learned is distance kills. Well, Shelley ran after I did, and it was one of the years that she flew. Like I think she would have been sixth in Open that year. And what we found is in that one corner, she ran a tighter line than I did. We kind of figured out like how big the corner was and everything, and it looked like she was probably about 2 feet, maybe 3 feet tighter in than I was, through the entire length of the corner. That translated to almost half a second. And I lost by less than that. Yeah. And I lost by – that was it. That was the only thing. But right there, she thumped me. Now, the rest of it was give, take. If I got away from her any tangible – and this is almost always the way it is with her. And I kind of feel that sometimes people don't realize it. And, she's more up and down than I am, and I think she will admit that when you talk to her. But – when she's on, look out. And if I get her, by any amount of time on those days that she's on, it's usually like one thing that's like one corner that's different. So that particular day, it was worth half a second. It was very obvious on data, but I was done. She ran after I did. So I couldn't make use of it except I filed it in my memory banks. Now, video is different. I try and use video as much as I can. I have an iPad, or different tablets or something, or take my laptop, and I've played around with a bunch of different cameras, seeing which one I could get the card out of fastest and everything. Video to me is much more of a visual learner, so I can look at data and I can interpret data, but it's data. It's like looking at ones and zeros to some degree on a computer. When I can see what I've done, and physically, like where am I, how far was I off that cone? Like I remember, I made a mistake in this corner, and then I look at the video and go, yep, and it confirms what I thought. Then I can go, okay, good, whatever. Now I know what I assumed is, actually right. So I think data is a big, video is a big one. But again, you have to be a consistent driver, and you have to recognize mistakes. If you can look, it's like looking at a course. If you stare at a video and you don't kind of like, or even when I watch video, I'm moving my eyes. Like I do when I drive the car. I'm trying to look ahead as far as I think I need to, basically, on the video. It even works that way with video games, like GT6 or what's the one for Xbox, Forza. If you look right above the gauges, you will drive off the road much more than if you look literally 2 inches higher on the screen. And Pilata, I think, will back me up on that too. It's crazy. So, yeah, to me, video is a really, really big one, because it's an actual record of what happened. Data is a record, but it's not the same. You can't see the attitude of the car. You can't. That's why, I don't know if you've seen any of my video.
Shoot, I rode with you. I don't need to see video.
Car video. What's that?
I rode with you. I don't need video. I have the real experience.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't run an in-car camera, and I don't run a camera on the roof or anything like that. My camera sits basically on the quarter panel off my left shoulder, and I run a wide angle. And I like that for a couple reasons. I can see my hands on the wheel. I can see my head. I can see the gauges. It's a wide enough angle and far enough forward that I can actually see to my other A-pillar, my right side A-pillar. And I've got basically a big field of view, and I can also see cones, how close I am to cones on the left side of the car. So to me, that's the best. And that's become a much more common, if you get on YouTube or whatever, it's become a much more common place for people to run the cameras. And, I try and help people as much in my class or any class for that matter as I can. But even though I'm competing in SSR, hell yeah, I want to win. But those are also the huge majority of that class and other classes too. But the one I'm actually racing in, people tend to end up running my setups because every place I go, I've tended to do really well, which is nice. And that's the idea with the business. But I share data. And the cool thing about SSR is Grant and Josh, like the three of us, we'll go back and forth and share data a lot, which is really neat to see the give take and how different, we do different things in different places. But that video, I post my videos all the time, for other people to see. Because if I'm not going to win, I want to win because I drove better. I don't want to win because I held some secret from somebody. So, like when Grant won in 2015, or Peters won this year, and that car had my front sway bar on it too. He runs a little bit different set of shocks, but it makes me proud. Those are my customers, right? And if I help them in some way, whether it's by helping them drive or helping them with some part in the car, if I can't win, there's no better feeling than knowing that I had something to do with the guy who did win.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Video is good if you know how to interpret it, And like I said, data's helped a lot with Shelley, but Shelley's a mechanical engineer, and she's a little more data-driven. So once I interpret it, she's learned how to do it herself. She learned real quickly how to do it herself. But the data helps her more. The video helps me more.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, people have been saying how you will look at their video from across the country, even when you're not at the race, and you can help them distill things. I find that very interesting. It sounds like you've helped lots of people just by looking and talking to them. Can you tell us how much you've done that, how long you've done that?
I don't do that often because people don't always ask me. I run a business, so it's kind of hard. So, honestly, to be very honest, it's my closer friends usually. Yeah. But it's usually when they ask me. I don't have to necessarily see the course. Obviously on the video I have to see the course, but what I'm looking for on those videos, if this helps anybody, it's more inputs. I watch people's heads. If they're never turning their head, like if it's a left-hand corner and I can never see them like turn and like see the front, see the tip of their nose at some point in a tight corner, generally I don't think they're seeing where they're going well enough. If they're off every cone, I watch that a lot. I'm just kind of watching distance from cones. I'm watching steering inputs. How much are they leading the car? If they're going down a slalom and they're basically at a slalom cone and then turning the wheel, instantaneously I'm like, you're late. Why are you late? And some people will go, well, he's not late. He went around the cone. And I'm going to say, well, again, it's that skiing analogy. It's physics, right? The car takes time to change direction and everything. So if you wait to the cone till you turn, you're going to make that cone. You'll probably make the next cone. You might even make the third cone. But if there's a fourth cone, you're probably not going to make it.
Yeah, that, right? Or you're making it because you're slowing down to make the next one, the next one, the next one.
Right, exactly. Right. So, yeah, I do what I can. With that, you got to be careful. It's become very, I guess, the thing to do to look at video at nationals from other people before you run. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it, especially in this day and age. Everybody's got a video camera and a laptop and stuff. So, I don't think it should be illegal or protest anybody over it. What I do think is this: I will only look at certain people's videos before I run at nationals. Or at least if it's a customer and they're struggling, I'll stand there and watch them, and I can tell a lot from outside the car. If they're desperate, I might look at their video, but if it's a whole different car that I'm driving, or maybe we're, I don't know how to put this politically correctly, a different speed, so to speak, it's very hard to separate sometimes what you're seeing with what you want to have done. What I want to do in the car. So again, it's that preconceived notion thing, like, I'm going to brake here. So when I do watch video like there, I try to make sure it's in a similar speed car or a car I know very well, like John V's BMW. I don't know if it came up in the podcast or not, but I'm probably the plan is that I'm actually going to pro solo that with him next year.
Oh, cool.
And we both want to do that because he's been better than he lets on for longer than he lets on, but we're very different, right? And I think we complement each other, and I kind of relax him a little bit because I'll make stupid jokes and stuff. But that car is basically, if you look at results, it's basically as fast or faster than my car is, at pros. It builds the speed in a whole different way. It's much more momentum-based in terms of grip level. But I run the same lines in the car, whatever. We're very competitive drivers. I can look at his video. I can listen to his throttle inputs, whatever. I can hear when he's flat through something, and I know I can't go through flat through there because I'll burn the rear tires off the car and be sideways because I don't have a big spoiler and stuff. But I know that car well enough to do that. So, and I know whatever I'm seeing is very adaptable to my car. Because if you have a 60-second course, the cars are going to be within probably 3 or 4 tenths of each other. If you force me to watch, I don't know, an H Street video, I might go, okay. I mean, I probably will say okay because I don't like to turn people down. I don't like to say no. As shocking as that might be to somebody, I don't like to say no, but I will if I have to. But I have to, like, some part of my brain, it's like that whole school mode thing I was talking about earlier. I have to, like, try and kind of like observe without actually paying too much attention, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, because I just don't want to be lulled into, oh, yeah, that's a lot faster than I thought it was. You know, because the car's 15 miles an hour slower or something.
So mentioning pro solos, when did you first get to do a pro solo, and what were you thinking after that event?
My first pro was the year I started in '94 in my, Uber Datsun. What was I thinking after that event? Probably something like, what the hell was I thinking?
To be there, because it was your first year.
Yeah.
Racing.
Yeah, it was my first year. It was, Valvoline was still in the game then, so there was a whole Valvoline rig, and there was, some prize money to be had, more than there is now and stuff like that. I guess it's one of those things now. I think back and kind of go, well, if I only knew, then what I know now, if I had a time machine, it'd be awesome. But, I love pros from the get-go. I think I'm one of the minority. I don't know when you started doing them, but most people I notice, it's like when I started, I was the kid. And now I'm like the grizzled veteran, and I think about how many people are left from when I started, and I realize, holy crap, now I'm the old guy. But I actually liked it. It used to be, I don't know when you started, but it used to be that you made a left side and a right side, and you went back to grid. And you had like 5 minutes, and then you came back and did a right and a left. And I liked that better at the time, and I was better at pros early on too, because it gave me time to think, to think about the two runs and kind of go, kind of maybe put a small plan in place, how to improve. Now, when they changed to the 4-run, bang, 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 kind of thing, it's more efficient for the event, and I understand that. But in a way, it almost makes me feel like, I don't know, kind of shortchanged. In a way, like it just happens. The reason John V likes it, because it all happens so rapid fire, I kind of almost don't like it as much, because it's like, oh, it's over already. And, if you're in a big class and you have a lot of cars lined up, it's a little bit better because, things aren't quite as hectic. But, if you're up there with only 4 other pair or 3 other pair or something ridiculous like that, it's kind of like, man, I drove all this way and I'm done, in 3 minutes or something. And then as time went on, as I got better and better and learned to go faster and kind of stuff like that, it's actually kind of flipped. I mean, I still love pros and everything. But, I've been through ESP and running against all-wheel drive cars, and Launch Advantage has a bunch to do with it, which, if you're in a spec-y class, big deal, but if you're not, that's hard. Like for me to make up, 3/10 per side on a 911 on a 32-second course or something, that's a big ask. But the other thing is when I learned, as I went on, and I learned to go faster, quicker, I guess I should say, those really fast first kind of runs, to me, the national tour setup became more my thing, right? Because it kind of fell more into my wheelhouse. I didn't need the practice, so to speak. It didn't take me to the end of a pro to go fast. And now it's kind of flipped where I can go out and go fast pretty quick. And now other people who need more time, the more looks at the course, they start to catch up, over that period of time. They have the benefit, especially now with the benefit of data and video, right? And especially with a pro, because if you have time at lunch, terrific. But if you don't, you still have the whole second day, to come tearing back if you figure something out overnight. I mean, it happens occasionally for me, but, probably not as much as it does for some people. And, I love it. I love to do them. I think they're fun. They're very hectic, but, I won't quit. As long as they run them, I'll do them. But I do like the longer courses, going, as they were making them shorter and shorter was getting frustrating. That's why, as they improved the timing stuff, and I know Howard was, the whole gang was, but, I talked to Howard a fair bit with course design and stuff like that. And I'm glad we've been able to get back to a bit longer course.
The ones in Lincoln.
Timing equipment improving.
Yeah, when they use that whole thing in Lincoln, both sides, oh my goodness, it's the best of the best.
Yeah. Well, and I'm very flattered because, they gave me that green light award, which I had no idea was coming, for helping. And I was flattered because the finale course was actually Howard's basic design. But he sent it to me and said, here, make this work, basically. And it originally had another cone in each slalom. And I kind of didn't want to, when I build courses, you probably haven't driven much of my stuff. Well, you wouldn't have because where you are. But, I try to make things fairly balanced. I never think about them in terms of just my car or something like that. I always have a lot of slalom. I tend to transition a lot, even though I don't have the best, necessarily transitioning car in the class, for instance. I want things balanced. So when I looked at the course, I went, maybe a 7 and a 6 cone slalom is kind of excessive in a pro solo level, course. And the shape basically followed, but like for instance, the pro finales over the years are pretty normal where, you go out, you get to that far end, you make a big sweeper to the left, you kind of make a sweep back to the right, and then you get to the far corner of the lot, right? And that's exactly what he had. It was just like sweep, sweep, slalom, sweep, sweep, kind of thing. It was normal. So if you think about what we drove, the basic shape was the same, but I actually made it where, like I put some wallums in, like some things where I'm very big. I love doing things where you have to thread the needle. You have to carry some speed through something while you're bending, and if you do it right, you kind of slide right up to another cone. I don't want to make it tight. It's got to be big enough for it to be fun in my car as well as something else. It can't be so wide open that a Miata is just boring. And I don't know how to explain that to people, but it's kind of a knack, I guess, somehow I've developed maybe from driving all these different cars. But so that was a nice little thing, and we're doing more of that. But Howard did the basic design, and then I tweaked the shape of it, and I ended up doing a map, sent it back to him, and that's what basically got set up. And I even made some changes, when I got there, on some things that were probably a little tight because he likes to pre-drive everything in his Miata. Yeah, they're awesome. The longer courses that are pro, I can't think of anything a whole lot more fun. And I like doing everything in a car. Like I said, I went to Thunderhill on Sunday. I'd never been there. I know John, like, for instance, doesn't do track events. I enjoy them. It's not a race, but I really only enjoy them if there's other people around that are like the same speed or friends. It's not a competition. It's a track day. I started NASA time trialing a bunch. I've done some SCCA time trial as well, but the rules are kind of different. It's a little easier with NASA. And to me, time trials are awesome because you're on track, but it's still like the autocross competition part. But you're not road racing. If you see some guy barreling down on you and he's, got fire in his eyes, you just go, okay, I'm just going to move over and let him by, which you can't do when you're road racing per se. So I enjoy it. I don't think personally there's much to be learned for a fast soloist for being on the track, from being on the track. Road racing is different. I'm not one of these guys that thinks road racing is it's just easy and anybody can do it. The racecraft, passing somebody under the brakes at the last minute, that's hard. Driving a car on a track fast isn't very hard to me because we're used to learning things. And once you get acclimated to the speed and you stop worrying about, well, I don't know, I've not gone 135 miles an hour, down the straightaway before. Speed, if you're far enough ahead, speed. Things happen, frankly, for me, much quicker at an autocross course than they do typically on a road course, right? So, I don't know. I'm a car guy. I like to do anything. So, pro solos are neat. Tours, it'd be nice if we had 4 runs at tours, I think, sometimes. But
hey, I like it. How about spec classes and 4 runs? We'll just package deal. I like it.
Yeah. Match tours, I think, are a riot. They've worked really hard at making them better. I think match tours are awesome because you get a lot of runs like you do at a pro, but typically on a longer course. If you're good at using data or video, you still benefit from that the second day, like you would at a pro. You get contingency for them, and you get more seat time, and the cost is cheap. It's half. It's half of what a pro solo is or a tour for the most part. So if you haven't done a match tour, or some people call them math tours because they packs for the shootout things, go do one. And by the way, that's the other thing. It drives me crazy when people bitch about packs because I think that's a huge tool that I use. I use it a lot because I can't always count on somebody fast being in my class at a local event, but I can generally count on somebody fast being around in some other class. And,
so you can compare yourself overall. And I say, especially for people that are lower down or wherever you're at, I always judge myself where I was at as I improved.
Right. That's what it's for. That's the whole idea behind it. And I understand that there are certain regions that, live and die by it or match tours use it or something like that. But, I've talked to Rick Ruth a lot about it. He's no dummy. If I was king, I guess, for a day or something, I think things have changed. From when PAX started, things have changed. I think a lot of the data that gets used from certain regions is skewing it the wrong way. I personally think data should only be used from national events, from events where there's a deep field, where there's a deep field. And, I'm sitting here in Northern California right now, and Shelley and I have had this conversation. When I started, I remember reading, North American Pylon and Grassroots Motorsports and stuff. San Francisco region was one of the places where, that was the place. That's where it was at. And it ain't that way here now at all. But yet it's still one of the regions, I'm pretty sure of this, it's still one of the regions that gets used for indexing purposes. Milwaukee is one, but Milwaukee was one of the leaders in the street tire thing. They've got a huge contingent of street tires. They got nobody on race tires, right? So you're not going to get a read on, say, SSR, for instance, versus STS or whatever for Milwaukee. It's just not going to happen. But where will that happen? It'll happen in Toledo. It'll happen in Lincoln, somewhere else. And national events happen on both asphalt and concrete. Local events don't. So if there's a skew, toward X tire on a certain surface, you'll see that over the course of, a year with national events.
No, that's great input, especially when we go to Lincoln and Spring Nats gets pretty well populated with people. You probably get pretty good data back from that.
Right. And the other thing is things change. For instance, I opted to run at Spring Nationals this year on the second day. I opted to run A Street instead of Superstock. SSR. I'll never get that right. I had rivals. I had one Dixie and one El Toro earlier in the year on rivals. Honestly, as much as I'm not a big fan of street tires, the car was awesome. El Toro was Shelley's car and Dixie was my car. They're cloned because it makes it easy for me to go back and forth and her to go back and forth. The car was phenomenal, actually, in both, but it was fun. I had no qualms about driving them. When I went to Spring Nationals, I didn't realize this, but the A7s are wearing so well for us on our cars that by the time I made my Sunday morning runs at the Spring Nationals Pro, the tires had, best I could figure, about 85 or 90 runs on them.
Wow.
Brian won, Matthew was second, I was third. I wasn't like 8 seconds back or anything like that. In fact, I had led one of the sessions. I think I'd led Saturday after session 2. But I got in the car Sunday, and the car felt like it was a cat on linoleum. It was everywhere. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And I didn't realize the tires looked so good. I don't count runs like most, some people are very anal about that. I don't. I just look at the tire and go, oh, it looks good. Let's run it. Then I realized how many runs they had on them. And it was good for Shelley. It was crap for me. Shelley got in it for the challenge, actually got out of the car and she got down on the ground and looked at it. And I'm like, what's wrong? But I walked over, and she goes, are they corded? And they weren't. They had plenty of meat. They just heat cycled out, I think. So I said, screw it. We'll run the rivals. That's when you caught me on the practice course. I was up there scrubbing rivals for the tour. And the funny thing is, this is one of those funny things about Lincoln that people don't think about. The practice course, I'm sure you remember, at Spring Nationals was not where it is for Nationals. It was like at the back of paddock, for instance. So the grip there is always different. The courses are always looser, at least for high-power rear drive cars, where we run the events, than any of the practice course areas. When we got out there, the car was so loose, it was amazing. I couldn't believe how much I chased the back of that car, and it was everywhere. It was on the way in, on the way out, in the middle. I'm like, what in the hell happened? This car doesn't behave this way. And in Georgia, it didn't behave this way in El Toro. It's that surface. I don't know what it is. And I mean, I tried every trick in the book. I played with shocks. I had the thing pinned down with fuel. I'm one of the few people that do that. I run my car full for track, trying to put power down and stuff. And it was so bad. Shelley doesn't deal with a loose car very well, or as well as I do, I should say. She drives them fine, but she doesn't like it. At the Pro, she was very slightly quicker than me on one side, very slightly off me on the other. At the Tour, she decided to run open with me, and she was just not competitive. Finished last, just wasn't anywhere, and didn't trust the car at all. I managed to survive. I got Cashmore by a little bit, but if you ever talk to Jeff Cashmore, he'll tell you the same thing. He bought that Corvette, and it was for sale. I don't know if he sold it, but he spent the entire year on most surfaces that they run on, chasing the back of that car everywhere. And that's the thing. I don't have to worry about that on Hoosier. So when it comes to that surface, I think I'd rather be on something stickier. For my car, Bridgestones are not really an option. I have a 12-inch rear wheel, and only at Nationals did they come out with a 305, which is still too narrow for my wheel.
Yet another reason the C5 is a easy, cheaper answer.
Yep.
Wow.
Cheaper to prep. Yeah. So, I can go on and on forever. You asked me a question, I probably have 10 different stories. I've done this so long now, but lots of funny things, but
yeah, no, it's fun. That's where you even won the Pro Solo overall, and you were second.
Yep.
You just mentioned a bit ago, but were you? Did you know you had a good chance that year? How did that shake out?
Yeah. No, that year I knew. It came down to I can't remember through this year. I won the DC Challenge that year. Was second someplace else. I had a first, second, and a third in challenges. It came to the finale, and it basically came down to me and Tom Berry. And Tom and I have raced against each other in ESP in the past. So, we kind of know each other and stuff. And they were in the Evo by then, and I was in the Shelby. And I remember I was staged. I think I was the next pair to go. And we were a bunch of rounds in, and it looked like, I think, if I remember correctly, it might have been like if he had won that round and I had won my round, we were going to go heads up. But it was not. I think that was after they made open boost legal, and I'm sure they are running a lot of boost in that car, and it blew a intercooler hose off on course. So he lost that round, and I was kind of trying to do the math in my head the best I could, because I think, I was in the car going, I think maybe, that's all that had to happen, for me to wrap this up. And I was so busy thinking about that when I got to the final two against Ian Baker, who's a good friend of mine and customer, and drives Little Mike Snyder's Honda. We both royally flubbed up. I forgot to do a burnout, and so I had all kinds of crap on the rear tires, and he forgot. I can't remember what he did. Oh, and he just had so much clag on the back of the CRX that he went to the first turn and the car took off on him, and I couldn't get off the start line. But his mistake was smaller than my mistake, and he ended up winning the finale, the challenge. I was second, and that was plenty for me to be overall champion that year. But I'm terrible. I'm not one of these. I try and run competitive classes, and I've never sandbagged. I tried one time at one challenge, and it went horribly, terribly. And I went, you know what? It's just better for me to drive as fast as I can go. But no, I can't go into a year thinking, oh, I can do this or I can do that. And this year I was nowhere on challenge points, but just whatever happened, Whitener got knocked out, Paul Brown got knocked out, it just kept going. And I realized pretty quick by the time I got to, I think by the time Russell took Peters out the round before, or 2 rounds before, I think that I was literally, as the challenge went on, I had my phone out, sitting in the car, like scrolling, kind of looking at points before the event. And I'm looking at where Paul was, which was, I don't know, maybe he was 10th or something, but I was like 28th or some crap like that. But as things went on, I went, hey, wait, oh, geez. And then, but, the longer it went and the longer Paul went, I knew I was in more and more trouble. And, and then we ended up meeting, and I did the best I could to catch him, but
yes,
not enough.
He's just slightly good at that.
Yeah, he is. But even if I'd beaten him, he had gone enough rounds and had enough points before the event going in, I still wouldn't have gotten around him. But, it's still nice bragging rights. I've never actually won the challenge at the finale.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
fun.
Although coming in second and winning overall I will take that any day.
Yeah, it didn't suck. I enjoyed it. Although this will stick in my brain. Mark Andy, Mr. Delicate. We're actually friends, despite some things that got said about certain things on street tires. But he walked up to me because 09, that was a good stretch. Like the Shelby, that car and I are two peas in a pod, and I was good in those cars. And I won the overall. I won nationals. I think I ended up getting 18 tires from Hoosier that year, just from nationals. That week. And but Mark Andy walks up to me after I won nationals, and he goes, "Now what?" And I'm like, "What do you mean now what?" And he goes, "There's nowhere to go but down." And I'm like, "You ass." I think about that periodically.
Well, yeah, because I've thought, I'm like, oh yeah, you can win Pro Solo Class, Pro Solo Overall, and Nationals. Like, somebody can win all three. Only one person.
Yeah. So I missed the challenge by the one, so I won the other two.
Yeah.
And and the thing is, as time has gone on, so anybody out there listening, if you're kind of newer at this, if you're dedicated and you want to do well, just keep pushing at it, because if you know me, if you've ever met me, I am not exactly what you would call a race car driver size, right? Kinch will vouch for this. I'm, more like the size of the iceberg that took the Titanic down.
I think you're looking mighty slim. I don't know what's going on over there. Getting ready for a Civic, probably. Miata.
Exactly. No, don't worry about that. You're good. But the thing is, when I started this, it got to the point where I was like, oh, if I ever just trophy at Nationals, I'll be happy. Early on, I remember watching Dean Sapp slalom his 92 Camaro. This is before I had my Camaro. And I watched him slalom that thing. And Dean's a left foot breaker. He's one of those really good left foot breakers. And he had this ability. He would hit the gas, hit the brake, put the car on its nose, and it would just, I can't even explain the way it looked going down a slalom. And I was standing on a curb with Tim Aro, and we kind of looked at each other, and I went, if I could ever do that with a car, I'd be happy. That was my first year. And then, as time goes on and I got to know Dean and stuff, and I got to know the Kozlaks, periodically over time, and it's kind of funny, it's a very small world. It's not like we're superstars or, famous, making $20 million a year kind of athletes or anything. But it's funny for me to look back and go, I didn't even want to talk to these people, and they're completely normal people. I look at it now, and I see people who don't want to talk to me sometimes, like they're shy about it or whatever, and it makes me not laugh at them. It just makes me chuckle, because I remember being that way too, going, I can't talk to that guy. And I'm like, just come talk to me. I'm the biggest teddy bear in the world. I'll tell you whatever I know. And, and the other thing is I have a rule. I have a 3 strikes rule, and I've had to use it a couple times. If you ask me once, I'll tell you. If you ask me twice, I'll tell you. If you ask me a third time, you don't listen, that's it. I'm not telling you anymore, because I've got better things to do, and other people to walk course with, and other stuff like that, and go find somebody else to ask at that point. So I'm pretty open to a point, but, I think sometimes certain people forget that, things get busy for me at national events now. It wasn't that way 20 years ago, but now, people are asking me to walk course or advice on their cars or whatever. And I'm very willing to do any of that, but it's a give take. If you ask me all these questions and I help you out, and then I find out you jumped on Summit Racing to buy something and never called me, to even ask, what the price was, I'm going to go, well, okay, if you can't be bothered, then I won't be either. It sucks, and I hate it, but, you got to pick and choose how you do that. But everybody is super nice, and, just work at it. If you're new and you're out there, just keep plugging away, because I'm telling you, I was atrocious. Just horrible. When I started, I have video of it sometimes. The first national event I ever won, I locked myself out of the car the night before, and it became a big thing with, AAA not showing up, and us trying to figure out how to break into a Camaro, which was at the time the most stolen car in the country. This is probably before your Type R was around, and but I didn't want to break the window, and then I had the strut bolts come loose in the front. I mean, I was a kid, I didn't know, but that's when I kind of learned. The second day, I came tearing back. Lynn Kozlak had a pretty big lead,
Do you think
And the week before,
that helped you mentally be so distracted? Was there some mental benefit to that you just got in and drove the next day?
Yeah. No, I know there was. The problem is trying to remember that all the time now, even to this day. But, yeah, the week before we had a pro in Virginia, and this is way back in the day before everything was computerized and stuff. And Lynn and I, this is what I was getting at before with the pro. She hammered me the first day, just hammered me. And I had a Kumo contract, and nobody was really on Kumos, and that was the one thing that was different than everybody else, and I didn't know what was tires and everything else. Turns out Karen Kraus was taking video from ground level. It's a drag strip, so it had a really short straight, and then you branched off, and the courses were long, like sideways. And there was these big offsets. And what I noticed right away, she showed me the video. Lynn, when we would go down the right side course, you could see the back of the car, obviously. She just lifted the whole way to the end. There was never any brake lights. Me, it was chicken tap on day one. And I remember looking at the video, and I got pissed. I'm 24 and everything, and and I'm like, well, God damn it! I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it. And so the next day, I remember I turned that very first corner, and I actually remember going, like taking a deep breath and kind of holding it, and just went down there, lifting. It was lifts, and I made it, and I took the lead over, and then she switched back, and there's a videotape taken by somebody else where Roger the Famous Johnson was announcing, and he's going, Sam takes the lead. No, wait, Lynn takes the lead. And it goes on and on. Every run, we were trading the lead back and forth. And finally, he mutters over the microphone, oh, God, I can't figure this out. And she ended up winning. And then the next event was the first national tour we had in Devens, Massachusetts. And, yeah, I locked myself out of the car. It's a strut car. The bolts on the bottom of the strut had come loose, and there was a clunk. All this crap was happening. She had 1.1 seconds on me going into day two. It was a big, big, long course. And I'm like, I don't know. I just drove my ass off. And she coned her first run. She can't remember what she did. She just laid up too much on her second run. Like, I think she was trying to get a safety run in. And then she spun her third run. Because by then she realized, he's here. He's not playing around. He's made up the gap. And she told me that. And, we're really good friends and stuff now. And we had been for years, but it was that was my first event win, and somebody else has it on videotape. Howard was actually announcing, and he goes, I think Sam Strano actually won in the locksmith special. That is exactly what he announced as I crossed the finish for the first national I ever won. So yeah, there's some real good antics that have happened over the years.
So your parents are right. You like to drive cars fast. What else brings you back?
What, back to the older times?
No, just back to autocross every time. Why do you still come out? It's still that much fun.
Oh, I love driving the cars. I like the challenge of the different courses all the time, and I like building them too. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than I think that people realize sometimes. But the friends. I mean, honestly, I think every friend I have, except for maybe 2 or 3, revolves around these stupid pylons. Every single one of them. And the thing is, a lot of them are a long ways. I mean, I met Shelley because of this. And, a ton of my friends live in Baltimore. It's 5 hours. Most people don't know this. I'm a D.C. region member. I live 5 hours from D.C., where Mike Snyder lives and, Vittenboss and all those guys. But I drive down there for local events a lot. The site's a lot better than anything we have locally, but I don't know, we just get along, and it's a cut up, and I like going to dinner with people. And I'd say if there's one thing I miss, for some reason, I don't know if it's just because we're all older now, or something, but I just remember cutting up, in paddock in Topeka, to all hours of the night, and doing stupid things and stuff like that. Luckily, we never did anything, sadly, there's some bad crap that has happened, in paddock the last couple of years. But I think those things are more stupid than just, innocent play things. But I can't imagine a better group of people overall. I don't really, there's only a few people that I've ever met that I really, really don't like. And sadly, a couple of them probably involved in the sport, but I think it's just because I know more people, in this sport than anything. But also, all my best friends come from it. And even people I don't necessarily always get along with the best, I think I would do whatever I could to help them if they had a problem. And I think most of them would do the same.
Yeah.
Back. So.
I got to get ready for Kevin Youngers, because at some point I'm going to get him on.
Well, when you talk to Youngers, you go, so Strano told me to ask you about Nationals in 2011 and see what happens.
Oh, so let's get to...
He still apologizes to me. He walks up to me at Nationals this year and he goes, I'm so sorry about that.
I could not believe Kevin designed the course that you would have thought Andy Hollis designed. Like, they swapped each other. Like, you can do sweepers in a Civic, and I'm going to do super transition. I mean, that was insane.
You know what? Here's the best part about that. Obviously we had raced against each other for years, always in F-Stock, right? He called me, because I had my 5-liter car, my 5-liter Mustang, the year before. It was one of the first ones. I hated that goddamn car. I'd much rather race a Shelby. It's got less power, but it handled 100 times better. It had low rig springs and stuff like that. So Kevin calls me. I knew he was doing the national course. He calls me like the week before Nationals, maybe 2. And he says to me, hey, I think I'm going to trade the Shelby on a 5-liter. And I basically said something akin to, are you stupid? And he's like, well, what do you mean? It's got more power and you won in yours last year. And I'm like, yeah, but it's miserably hard to drive. I'm like, it's horrible. And I was very blunt with him. I said, honestly, I think there's probably 5 people who could drive the 5-liter as fast as a Shelby. I happen to be one of them, but it's way less fun. And it's just not, don't do it. Plus, mine had major electrical problems, so that was another issue. But he, made a deal, decided to do it, whatever. When we got there and I saw that course, I was like, I remember walking up to him, and Trevor Toddy was giving him a rash of crap about it. And I happened to walk up, and I heard Todd giving Kevin shit about it, right? And I'm kind of like, I'm a little peeved, right? Because Matthew and I were we were 40 thousandths apart on day one. And we had traded wins all year long. And I saw this course, and I'm like, oh, God. And I had people walking up to me with Corvettes going, well, this stupid course, you got to do something. I'm like, I can't. There's nothing I can do. The SCB signed off on it. It is what it is. It's all marked. I said, and then I got to the point where I told people, I'm like, just shut up. We haven't even driven it. Yeah. I don't want to hear about how bad it is, because I don't want to even have that in my brain.
You're going to suck on this course, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah. Basically, they didn't realize they were saying that, but that's what they were saying. And but I couldn't resist. I've known Kevin a long time, so I just gave him a rash of crap about it. And then I drove it, and it was 10 times worse than I thought it was going to be. So he walks up to – so after the first run, Matthew was just checked out. I told you, he walked up to me and congratulated – actually, I walked up to him. Sorry, he didn't do – I walked up to him and basically shook his hand and went, I got nothing for you. And he literally said to me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Matthew Braun looked at me and said, I'm sorry for beating you for a national championship. Because he knew what the deal was. And I went back to the car, and I'm sitting in the car for my second run. This is the Corvette. And he walks up to me, and I had my helmet on, and it was cold, I think, or something. I had the window up. Or it was hot, and I had the air conditioning on. And he walks up to me, and he kind of just stands there beside the window. He's looking into the car. He didn't knock or anything. And I glanced up at him, and I looked back straight. And then I kind of thought about it for a minute, and I'm like, I should at least acknowledge him. And I cracked the window like an inch, like some CEO would do in a limousine talking to somebody panhandling or something. And I remember looking at him, and I couldn't contain myself. I looked at him, and I'm like, can you tell me one thing? And he goes, what? He asked me what I thought of the course. And my answer to him was, tell me one thing. And he goes, what? And I'm like, you knew you built this course long before you traded the Shelby, right? And he goes, well, yeah. I'm like, what on earth possessed you to trade a Shelby on a goddamn 5-liter knowing you had to run on this? And he kind of looked at me, because he hadn't run it yet. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean? And I'm like, you don't have a clue how tight this is, do you? And he's like, well, it looked fine when Howard drove it. And I'm like, what did Howard drive it in? Just Miata. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, whatever. And I did my thing, and I came back, and I found him later, and I'm like, what? And then I was pissed by then. Not at him, really. I was more pissed at, of course, you don't know. You can't drive your stuff, But But he's done enough courses, and he knew. He's like, well, I wanted to make it technical. He goes, I know you like technical courses. He didn't build it for me, but I asked him, I said, did Super Stock even cross your mind because of the Lotus versus the Corvette thing? I said, did it even cross your mind when you built this course about classes that have car disparities like that? And he goes, no. I'm like, yeah, thanks, for that. And I calmed down very quickly after that. I went and apologized to him and stuff. And I'm not proud that I said that, but it's become a joke now. I love, plenty of time has passed. But he literally, this year, he walked up to me and he goes, I'm so sorry about that.
I mean, that was technical, yes, somewhat, to figure out there were so many cones, and you were always left, right. And I seem to remember you could hit cones on the left or right as you went through all those slots. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It was that tight.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a Civic, and yet it was like mentally taxing to pay attention. I do seem to remember hitting some cones on the right side of the car, which just because they were so close.
Julian Garfield, and I've known Julian since he was really small, and he wasn't exactly very old then. I can't remember if he was in an A-kart then or not. I think he might have been his first year, like in a JBA or second year or something. Julian put 3 seconds on Braun in an Elise on that course. And Matthew put 1.4 on me. Thomason had gotten a Grand Sport that year because he saw how well Jason and I had been doing in the car. Gary called me about, I don't know, maybe 2 months after Nationals. And he goes, I have something to tell you. And we're not, we're friendly, and I like Gary and everything, but we're not friends. Like, I don't have Gary's phone number, right? He goes, I have something to tell you, but I'm not sure you want to hear it. And I'm like, I don't know. What could be so bad? He goes, well, it's about Nationals. And I'm like, you mean Nationals 2 months ago? Well, whatever. It's over, so what's the deal? And I thought he was going to tell me he found out somebody was cheating or something. And he goes, well, I did the math. I don't even remember exactly how he put it. And I am not a math person like this, but he's basically, I calculated the distance between the transition cones and how wide the cars are compared, the Lotus to the Corvette and blah, 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 blah. Right? And I'm like, uh-huh. And I'm like, so? And he goes, well, best I can figure it, through the first 30 seconds of that course or 35 seconds of that course or something like that. He goes, everything else being equal, on the exact limit, perfect, the whole thing. He goes, the closest you would have been to Matthew was 1.3 seconds, and I ended up 1.4 back, right, on the thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what I figured, because I'm driving, and I'm like, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything else, I can't shrink the car. So that actually is one of those moments that kind of validates you're not crazy, And I did at some point tell Kevin that. I don't know if he remembers it or not. I'm like, Thomason made a point of calling me. You know that, right?
Gary, you need to be on the show. I talked to you a while back. Let's get this. Let's make it happen. Peer pressure, buddy. Gary Thomason on the show. There you go.
I'm sure he's got tons of stories.
I've talked to him. He said, I haven't autocrossed in a little while. I'm like, let's just say that's an excuse. It's 2017. No more excuses.
No. Well, he came to El Toro. He got Rita's Z06 and, did shocks on it. He ran A Street with us in El Toro this spring, and it was fun. It was like old times. And I was telling him, like, please just come back. But he's just had it. With the whole 9971 and some of the things that happen and the way some of the street tire things happen. He's like, no. He still has the Viper. He's like, mm-mm. He goes, I'm not wasting my time. And when you get somebody with that many jackets and that kind of history who just is willing to check out on the sport, it's sad, and I think for as much drive as as they're putting into new members and everything like that, I think, and Marcus Meredith calls it member equity. And when you drive people like that away, and I can't. I admit. The reason I'm starting to do more NASA time trialing and stuff like that, and I picked up another ESP Camaro, like my old one.
Darden probably has 2 or 3 of those. If anybody needs an ESP Camaro, let's help him sell some of those.
He did want to sell me my 2000. I'm going to say my 2001 back because I ordered that white car brand new. You, aside from a C5Z, you're not going to go faster for less money. I think you could probably pick that car up for around $10,000, and it now has 3 national championships plus a bunch of Pro Solo championships. And it comes with any knowledge I can impart or impart to the new owner.
He has 2 or 3 or 4 ESP cars now. I can't keep track.
He's got his 84. He's got the 97. He's got the 01, and I think he just bought it. I think he's buying a Gen 6.
He's already got it. Don't worry. He hasn't let me drive it yet. I don't. Oh yeah, it's not prepped yet, but
I'm kind of up in the air on that one. I know Danny. I've driven Danny's, and I'm kind of like going. I mean, it's got a boatload of power, but it's still a big. I still think the LS1 cars. I still think that car can get it done, even with the new cars in there.
And you have one now. You just
we'll
said.
See. I have a 98. Yeah, a 98 SS. I kind of bought it for track work and some muscle car events. Again, I have a business and I have to. I try not to be uber pushy about it, but what I found is results tend to bring, business. So, and I've shown up at enough muscle car events, and not just me, but Junior's done it and Pop's done it and stuff like that. I mean, pretty much wherever SCCA autocrossers go with those things, we tend to do pretty well. And I'm like, well, you know what? I kind of miss having one. And Shelley was actually back east the first time we autocrossed it after I bought it this year. And she had never known me in a pony car. When we met, I was already in a Corvette. And first time she rode with me in it, she goes, oh, now I get it. Now I get why everybody says Sam's a pony car driver. Because I had it, a foot out pretty much everywhere, foot on the floor. And first run I got back, and I'm like, yep, can't do that with a Corvette. That's the only thing I don't like about the Corvette is you can't hang it like that and go fast at the same time.
Oh, I wrote this down the whole time on each page as I flip and take notes here. It was F-Stock, and you won that year. And there was like a big circle toward the finish. And I seem to remember it was a cone on the left, cone on the right. But it was basically, it seemed like a circle, like they really measured a circle. I remember you leaving 2 faint black lines the whole second half of that to the finish area-ish.
That sounds like me.
I remember like, oh my goodness, did you see that? He kept it just a little slip angle, and it left these 2 black marks. And I seem to remember go tell Kevin Younger's like, he was doing this versus you, and he's like, his car's set up different. I'm like, oh, all right. Once again,
you know what's funny about that?
What?
Here's the hysterical part about that. Remember I told you that I like when people, even though I'm racing against, do the same thing?
Yeah.
Kevin knew exactly what my setup was.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we had the same shocks and we had the same sway bar, but it's an adjustable bar that I made and stuff. And the thing is, we would have these conversations, and usually it would be followed up with, well, I can't make that work. And I would go, okay. I mean, he would ask me. I would tell him. Followed up by, I can't make that work. And then he would say, well, my car's doing this. And I'm like, uh-huh. Well, make it like my car. But he wouldn't do it. So I don't know if he couldn't drive it for some reason. And again, Kevin's a big left foot breaker, so maybe that had some, maybe the physics difference there had some thing to do with it. Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me. That's where those differences come in. And you'll periodically get stuff like that. The Focus ST, I haven't heard, what you talked to Mark Scroggs about, but, when that car came out, I bought one. I hated it. But multiple times it tried to kill me. One time it tried to kill me oversteer, like snap oversteer, when I had my foot flat on the floor. Because the rear bar in those cars is bound up, like really badly. So it's very snappy. And I figured that out in pretty short order. It was doubly confirmed to me when I actually put a bigger rear bar on it, but it wasn't bound up. And it made the car too loose on the way into the corner, but it was actually more predictable. So I decided to make a rear bar, and I said, well, this is stupid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the stock size bar. I'm just going to make it adjustable so we have a little trim change, and I'm going to get rid of the bind. Scroggs actually has the prototype bar, the bar he won with, and also the bar that Andrew Pilata won with this year. So Focus ST's won 3 years, all on my sway bar. It was like pulling teeth to sell that bar to anybody because they're like, it's not bigger, it can't work. And I'm like, but with a stock rear bar, it has enough load transfer. It's stiff enough that it actually picks the inside rear tire up off the ground.
What more do you want?
With a stock, right? So I'm like, so once it's off the ground, it's off the ground. The outside rear tire is carrying all that load already. Putting a bigger bar on just makes things snappier, which is kind of what we're trying to get rid of, And the thing is, a whole bunch of people got that and understood it once I explained it to them. But literally, I mean, I don't know how many. I probably sold 30 of those bars, maybe, but they're all to autocrossers.
Even though they'd probably be safer for pretty much everything, or
Be way safer. Yeah, and actually the GTI, the Mark 7 GTI has the same problem. The rear bar. A lot of cars are doing it now, but it's also in a bound up state on the rear bar. So Travis Kelly has one, and some other people have one. Andrew Wong actually had the prototype. He ended up going back to his H&R bar. So stock's 20.3 millimeter. I did a solid 22. The H&R is 26. Well, Andrew and I talked to him a bunch. He ended up going back to the H&R. I still think it's wrong, personally. Car was pretty fast at Nationals, but the GTI was really good for the West Course because it has a diff and the Focus doesn't. And it's geared much taller, so they didn't have to shift to third for the finish. The Focuses all did. But the thing is, when you put too big a rear bar on those cars, again, once you pick the rear tire up, you're not gaining anything by picking it up higher. In fact, you're making things worse because the next thing that happens, the higher the inside rear goes, the more load the outside front tire has to carry. And it's a nose-heavy front drive car with no camber. So it pivots a little quicker, but then you just obliterate the outside front tire. And I tried to convince him of it, can't convince him of it. So he went back to the H&R, and I just shrugged and went, okay, what can I do? I've done everything I can do, to explain it to him. So I don't know. Maybe he'll go back. He still has it. But, I do think outside of the box.
Can you change them pretty quickly to test back and forth?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, Volkswagen's a little harder because you got to get it over the rear. You got to get it over the exhaust system, but it's not hard. It's not
just
like
pull that off.
You
don't want to run a stock muffler.
Yeah, well, they're actually running a straight pipe on his car. So, thing is, again, it kind of is if you race it, it will follow. Well, I've never raced the GTI. It's a hell of a fun street car. In fact, I've said for probably the first time in forever, I have taken a car and completely ignored any kind of autocross rule to it. It's got coilovers. I put a box on it to up the boost. And you know what? It's a hell of a lot more fun to drive, and it's not my thing to autocross. It's fun on the track and stuff, but I don't want to run G Street. I think in STX it could do some damage because the diff is phenomenal, and they're underrated on power. It's kind of heavy. And until the SCCA decides to get off their ass and make it so you can police boost, I could cheat my ass off in that car. I wouldn't, but I could cheat my ass on that car, and nobody would ever know it. I have a big problem with that. I unfortunately have had to protest somebody in the past, and it wasn't fun. But, it's a very enjoyable car, but, I have no want to autocross the thing. And unfortunately, because of that, I'll probably never sell a lot of sway bars unless somebody wins on my sway bar. So, yeah, it's a tough road to hoe, but I do think outside the box when it comes to stuff like that. And a lot of it is based on watching how cars work. I look at a lot of pictures. I know a lot of people. Back with the old not the old MR2s, like the second gens, the 91 to 95 cars. When Kevin Bailey and those guys were all running them, that kind of era and after. When I would drive them, it had a torquey Camry motor. The normally aspirated ones have a 2.2 liter Camry motor, and it makes a ton of torque. Makes no horsepower. It makes a lot of torque, and they have no diff. The things, and I'm generally, again, like I said earlier, one of the first guys to the power. So I would drive them, and I would just burn the inside rear tire off constantly. And I'm like, God damn it, I got to do something. If I could only make that work, make it not spin the tire, it would be way faster because they are a riot to drive. And Salerno bought one. I love technology. I was wondering, it didn't even click on my end. I didn't know.
Yeah, I luckily just heard Skype go boop boop. I'm like, oh wow, that's done. We have never talked this long on Skype. Maybe it just says 4 hours. And you're good.
Probably. So how about a 3-parter or the rapid fire stuff?
Well, what I really want to let you have a little time if you want to is talk about the business. You sound like you've been in the parts business from day one. So when did you get started, and what were you doing with cars and car parts?
My mother's parents had a carburetor rebuild shop in Miami, and my dad was from Pennsylvania. He moved down there. They actually met because she had an accident, and he was her insurance adjuster. And unfortunately, they both died of cancer very early on. He ended up getting sucked into learning how to work on cars. They decided Miami wasn't the best place to raise kids, moved back to Pennsylvania, opened a foreign car repair shop. We did that for a long time, and then my mom got the bright idea, which actually was pretty bright, to put a little tiny classified ad in the back of Auto Week magazine selling brake pads and catalytic converters that knock your socks off prices. I remember that because I hated it, and we had a fight about it. And, we did that for a while, and it, along with having the shop, and then we realized that, working on cars sucked and getting yelled at by people, because they neglected their crap wasn't much fun. And then I started autocrossing, and I wasn't very good at it, and I was horrible at it, but I realized that people spent money on parts and things like that. And, if I could ever get to the point where I was decent at it and could win things and I could set cars up and maybe help people and sell them parts instead of them going somewhere else to buy parts from somebody who had no clue about this sport. So that's kind of how it ended up evolving. I got lucky in the fact that I learned how to drive and am pretty good with cars, anyway. There's lots of people that sell parts that can't drive their way out of a wet paper bag. So, when push comes to shove, I think that's a difference. I can always point to the fact that, generally most things I get involved with work, no matter if it's a Focus ST or a Camaro or a Corvette or something like that. So I've got a pretty good track record, and, I've been lucky in that way. I get to play with cars and stuff like that. It's frustrating sometimes, and, I'm a wear my heart on the sleeve kind of guy. And, my mom got cancer a few years back and passed away in 2008. And for almost 3 years, I worked in a business that, we're pretty busy. Almost $1 million a year gross. Certainly not anywhere near that net, by the way. And I was doing that all by myself and wanting to kill everybody. And to this day, it's me and my assistant Desiree, and that's it. So I work real hard to try and make sure when people buy parts, they're buying the right stuff. I don't like getting yelled at. I certainly don't like getting yelled at by people who spent money. And, unfortunately, the buck stops at my desk, not with some customer service flunky. So, unfortunately, I get in this weird catch-22 sometimes where I feel like I have to be honest with people, so I have to tell them no, that's not going to work the way you think. And sometimes they appreciate it, and sometimes they hang up on me, and sometimes I have to explain to them that once I've said that, I will happily sell you whatever you want, and then sell you whatever you need later. And then if I can get that far with them, they usually understand that I'm not trying to sell them a bill of goods. And I've got pretty loyal customers, which is nice. So, and honestly, just listening to the other podcasts between Pilata and Mark, Scroggs and Vinabos, and, they're far from the only ones, but, when I haven't won, I've been pretty involved with lots of other people. I've helped Pat Salerno a bunch with every championship car of his but one, which actually wasn't his, that was borrowed. I've got a stack of shock dynos for like Corvettes, for instance. It's, half an inch thick, all kinds of different things. So, when I go to it, I work pretty hard at it, but unfortunately I can't own every car and I can't drive every car, which kind of sucks. I wish I could.
No kidding. How many of us want to sign up to get a little more seat time in some different cars? That's where you got to figure out, you can expense these cars, surely, that you get to buy each car. See, you've actually got you not only make money in something you enjoy, you also can write off. You have more stickers on cars than I can think of any other stickers except for SCCA. You see Strano parts on so many cars.
And frankly, and this is the thing, I'm a terrible businessman. That's the big joke. I am not a salesman. I am not a businessman. I'm a car guy. And I keep trying to get little Mike Snyder from SSE Tint, because he makes my stickers for me. I keep telling him, can I please just send people to you to mail the stickers out? Because you do that stuff all the time. I don't. I literally carry a cardboard tube full of stickers in my pickup truck, and I hand them out at events. To mail them, I have to basically kind of cut a cardboard box apart and make a little kind of envelope thing and ship them out and all that. And I'm horrible at it, and I don't charge anybody for them. So people ask me for stickers all the time, and I'm like, catch me at the Dixie Tour. So I'm ashamed to admit that, but but the fact there's as many stickers out there as there are, I guess is a pretty good sign. You know, and I don't sponsor cars. I mean, I can't. People ask me. Frankly, they ask me all the time, and generally, if they're doing what we do, I usually answer them with something akin to, well, you're asking me for sponsorship because it's expensive, right? And they go, yeah. Huh. I'm like, who do you think sponsors me? Because I've never taken a free part from anybody. I've been offered some free stuff, not a lot, because I don't go looking for it. You know, there are some people that are kind of more media savvy, I guess, than I am, and you know, they'll get given this and given that, and next year, you know, somebody else will give them a different set of shocks, and those shocks become the best thing since sliced bread. I don't like that. I would rather pay for my stuff. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. But, you know, not to get too political, but then I don't feel like a politician who's beholden to a lobbyist.
True, and that reminds me of Andy Hall saying it's best when he's not sponsored by a tire company because then everybody questions him when he does these tests. So I can see you the same thing with parts. If you're paying for them and trying them, hey, it's wide open. You obviously want to be as fast and have your customers be as fast as possible, not just because somebody did something special for you.
Yeah, it's a little hard because I have to be I become non-committal sometimes. I mean, there's very few things I will absolutely sit there and stamp my foot and go, no, you're wrong, and this is the only way you can do this. There are some people I can think of that will absolutely, like if you call me for, I don't know, a part for a Ford Mustang, and you call somebody else for a part for a Ford Mustang, I will generally say, well, you can do this, this, or this, and this is the way I would go because. Other people would go, you have to buy this part. Well, the thing I know about, you know, certain companies is, like one of them pushes one particular product line a lot. That same product line called me when they were trying to get a foothold into this country because, you know, I had a pretty good track record. And they're like, will you be, you know, our distributor? And I'm like, no, I don't like, I mean, frankly, I'll use your stuff on certain cars. There's certain things that you make that I like, and there's certain things that I think is, you know, frankly, not very good. And I said, I can't in good faith tell my customers to run this part or that part. I'll give them the option or whatever, but I can't, you know, I can't lock myself into that. And they went, okay, we understand. Thanks. Hung up. Boom. Went to the next company. The next company went, sure, great. And, you know, I find that a lot. So it's kind of hard to explain that to people who maybe aren't in business. I think any business to some degree goes through that. But, you know, if you're not self-employed or you just work a typical 9 to 5 and you don't have to deal with business dealings like that, I don't think most people realize, you know, that everybody's in business and everybody's to some degree out for themselves, and some people are smarter than others, and some people make a killing doing it, and other people are just happy to make a living doing it. And, you know, we'd all like to strike it rich, and I'd love to have that 997 too, but I'm, you know, again, I don't like getting yelled at, so I should literally sit on the phone sometimes going, I know what I should tell this guy, but I can't do it. And it gets me in trouble a lot, because a lot of people just, you know, they have money, it burns a hole in their pocket, and some people just want to hear what they want to hear. So
I want to spend this money, Sam. Let me buy this other part.
Yeah. In fact, Danny, and I will admit this, Danny, I'm talking about you, Danny Ko is the worst one for that. The thing is, he's not an asshole about it. He's a nice guy. But Danny and I have gone rounds. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, I sent him a message, and he said he wanted to buy something. I can't remember what it was. And for a split second, I hesitated, and then I backed up, and I went, yeah, sure, fine. I've learned my lesson. Because I've learned if I say, no, don't do that, you're being stupid, because we're actually very good friends, he will then go, okay, well, I'll just go buy it somewhere else. and then, you know, I'm like, God damn it, I can't, you know, my friends don't even buy stuff from me all the time. So I'm like, what do I got to do?
Can I buy a Honda distributor from you?
A Honda distributor?
Yes.
I don't know. I've never looked. Maybe. I like to tell people this. It's bad business because you don't want to send business away. But everybody knows Summit Racing, right?
Yes.
I'm a Summit distributor, among other things. So I make sure people know this very well. So if you ever pick up, for instance, a Summit Racing catalog, if there's anything in there that you see that you want, I have it. In fact, I have stuff they don't have because I deal with other companies that they don't deal with. And I will never be more than they are on a part, unless you happen to live in Pennsylvania and I have sales tax and they don't, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm definitely cheaper for the Ohio guys because I don't have sales tax. So, my website sucks. I'm not a web guy. I don't even take credit cards on the website because I frankly don't think you can secure stuff well enough. When these big companies get hacked, for 1 million credit card numbers, a little guy like me doesn't stand much chance. So pretty old-fashioned in the fact that if you place an order on my website, you place the order for the part, it takes your address, your phone number, that sort of stuff, and then you get an email back saying, great, we'll call you for your credit card. Because the way I figure it is, at that point, the only person getting the credit card number is whoever is listening at the NSA. And they could probably get your credit card number anyway. So
mine is 555.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I work pretty hard. Some people know it. Ryan Davies, for instance, is he didn't like me at first about 5 years ago because of something I lost my temper about, but I was right. Not directly toward him. It was a hearsay thing that he got wind of. But now, I have his credit card. He goes, like, keep the card on file. He doesn't ask about a price. He bought something the other day, and what I immediately did was went, all right, I'll take care of it. I went poking around just to see what the going rate was for the part, and then I pretty much beat it by about $10 or $15 from the cheapest place I saw. I can't say I can do that for every single part, but I try, especially for a loyal customer. That's the thing. You take care of me, I'll take care of you. So Ryan knows that now, and boom, he just basically, he'll send me a Facebook message and say, send me X, and I'll go, okay, and that's it. It's done. He doesn't have to call me with a credit card, nothing. Danny is the same way. Tom Reynolds, same way. So I've got customers like that, and those are the best because they're happy and they'll tell other people they're happy, and it's easy for them, it's easy for me, but they also know I'm going to look around and make sure. And even if they tell me that, if I come up with something and go, look, I just can't be price competitive with some Fleabay guy, who doesn't have the overhead of a business or something, a real business, he's to this kitchen table, I'll message them back or call them back and say, hey, I can beat Tire Rack, I can beat Summit, I can do this, I can do that, or match this person or whatever. And, 9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, that's fine. I don't care if you're $5 more, you're $5 more. Strangers on the internet aren't that way. If it's, if I'm $2.12 more than Amazon, and that's the thing. A lot of people buy stuff from Amazon, and it's tough. I have an Amazon Prime account too, but it's hard, for the local hardware store, quote unquote, to compete with Walmart, so to speak. So,
and the biggest key though is what you said. He can just say, I need this, and you're going to get him a good price. I waste so much time looking at, is it cheaper on eBay or is it cheaper on Amazon? Or should I go it's bad. I know but I do that. And you said that and it hit me. I'm like, I should just be able to go, Sam, I need this part. You can charge me $5 extra and save my time.
I mean, and the thing is, the website, there's, like I said, anything you see almost anywhere. I can't say I have every single part ever. The Summit thing is easy because most people know it. SCCA members generally get their catalog. Even if I buy it from them, right, it's still helping me. It's still helping another autocrosser. I still might buy it to Summit. They're still making money on the thing. It's not like you're cutting somebody else's throat. The thing about it is, the website, I can't put every single part up for every single car. I'm only one guy, so my website is primarily some, pony car stuff and some Corvette stuff. And, if you look at like the GTI or the Focus, there's a few parts here and there because I've had those cars, and I've done certain things with them, but there's not, 13 pages of things. It takes me like 10 or 15 minutes to put one new part in because I have to type a description and, get a picture and do all this sort of stuff. And I'm too busy, frankly, to do that most of the time. That I don't want to be bothered doing. I don't want to have every single part for every single car, and I don't want to have an army of people who knew nothing about cars talking to people trying to answer their questions. It's just not fun, to do it. I don't want to be a businessman like that, a magnate, parts.
Magnate, yeah, the largest so out there. You give the really personal service and the knowledge, which I think I'd mentioned. I think that's even more valuable than the savings or $5 or $10 extra on a part. Honestly, the people that know you should be paying extra because you've tested or you know a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people tell me that, and I appreciate that. And I really, truly do. I'm not wired. It's flattering, but I'm not very good at taking compliments either. But I'll give you an example. This weekend, like I said, I'm in California. They had a track day at Thunder Hill. We mounted some tires for Shelly's Corvette. And by the way, if I didn't mention that Shelly is the coolest person ever, the fact that she lets me take her Corvette to track days ought to tell you something.
Do you have a Miata? I'll take a Miata maybe.
She does. She has a 1.8 Miata, an STS car.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. Is it for sale? Does it have a limited slip?
The Pantera and the Super Turbo, and yeah. So anyway, I went down to see Scott Frazier to balance the tire. He works at an Audi dealership, and he was doing an alignment on a Mustang.
Of course.
And I walk in, and the car's lowered. He does alignments for people, autocrossers and stuff. And I look at the car, and it's obvious it's lowered, and I see it's on conies and stuff. And I don't know who the guy is. I've never talked to him. So the guy's in the car. I'm talking to Scott. I'm like, what's his name? And he tells me his name, and I don't recognize it. And he goes, I tried to get him to buy all the parts from you, is what Scott said. And I ended up talking to the guy. He's a nice guy, and come to find out that he's also going. He bought those particular parts from Maximum Motorsports. Maximum's a reputable company, no problem. And I'm a dealer for them, so I don't have any problem with them. He had an email from one of the guys who works at Maximum, who does an autocross, and all it said was, put 2 degrees of negative camber in the front and set the toe to 0. Oh, on second thought, with that much camber, you should probably put a little bit of toe in it. And it had no rear alignment specs. It didn't ask him what tires he was on. Nothing. Right? So I'm reading this email, and Scott's going, well, what do you think? I think we should put more rear toe in the back, blah, blah, blah. So we talked about it a little bit. I talked to the guy. He was a nice guy. Turns out he's going to Thunder Hill. I saw him at Thunder Hill. We ended up talking a bunch. I explained a bunch of things. I'm like, so did they explain anything about the shocks? No. Where did they set? He told me. And I'm like, yeah. I said, let me guess, the car kind of feels soft and floaty. He goes, yeah. He kind of looked at me funny, like, how did I know that? And I'm like, yeah. I said, you might want to turn them up. Try this, try that. This is not a customer of mine. Hopefully he will be in the future, right? But, I helped him out the best I could. He was nice to me. I tried to be nice back. We ended up having a few laughs. I tried to show him around the track before, on the outlap an IS 300 Sport Cross got in front of him, at which point I went, he can follow the Sport Cross. I'm out of here. But, it's an example. I try to help everybody out, but, there's only so much time in the day for one guy. And, I wasn't mad that he bought the stuff from Maximum, but it's an example. Nobody from Maximum Motorsports is going to show up in Lincoln, right? And it just happened to be. Normally, I can't say I would be at Thunder Hill either. It just happened to be that was the case. But even if I wasn't, he knows Scott Frazier. Scott and I are friends. Scott's obviously a hell of a good autocrosser, to say the least. It kind of, information flows and stuff like that. So, that's the way I try and work. And it doesn't always work out, but, if it works out, 3 out of 10 times, that's a pretty good batting average for a major leaguer. So I guess I have to be happy with it. It'd be nice if it worked out 7 out of 10 times, but.
Yeah, you're doing something, though, that I keep hearing in all the business stuff I study and pay attention to is you keep giving and giving and giving, as in you're giving all the knowledge and info that you have and even get feedback from other people that use your products. That's the biggest key that should be what gets you to 3 out of 10 to go to 4 or 5 is when people realize it's the knowledge. Once again, it's not just a part. It's, you should try this with your shocks or this with your alignment. Yeah. And what we do that's so valuable.
Well, right. That's the thing. I mean, I kind of there's an announcement on my website that basically says, "Hey, I'm willing to help. I can't give away the farm to a complete stranger." I'm like, but if you're not, willing to at least give me the chance on the part, then don't bother me. Essentially, it's more delicate than that. Not much more delicate than that, but and the thing is, I've literally had people call me and bitch at me about it. And I'm like, I don't even know you. Why are you're upset at me because I'm not going to tell you everything I know. And just this attitude right now, just that kind of attitude right now tells me you're exactly the guy that was meant for. You're going to pick my brain and then run off somewhere else. I had a guy call me, wanted to price match something over $4. It's a set of conies for like a Corvette, which are pretty expensive for this, for our cars. They're over $1,000. And literally he was bickering with me over $4.59.
time.
And I'm like, I've been on the phone with you for over an hour. I don't even know you. You haven't even bought a part. And this is going to I'm like, not doing it. I'm like, you either want to buy them or you don't. So he hung up. He's like, nope, thanks. Click. Hung up. He bought the rear somewhere else. Then realized they were out of stock on the fronts. Everywhere else he looked. So he had to come back to me to get the fronts. And like an idiot, I sold them to him for the same price. Because that's, to me, that's the thing. There's this honest gene in me that goes, I should make this guy pay, but I can't do it because especially with the internet, I do that. It's all over the internet. I'm an asshole, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm like, And I know there's still something. Like I was going to my website to do something the other day, and I just typed in Strano Parts, and like the third thing that comes up on Google is like Strano Parts review, and it's one guy who basically I told to get bent on something.
So everybody listening, or some of the people listening, you've bought parts. This is a huge thing that I've not done well with our businesses is reviews. If you bought a part from Sam, Google, maybe Sam can tell us what he Googled there about Strano Parts reviews. If you see somebody that has something negative, you all that are happy and have benefited need to go bury that comment. So hopefully after you hear this and you go and check, you better find that that's been buried by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 100 people. That will help Sam as much, well, not as much as you getting someone else to buy stuff from him, but that will help so much in the online world. So much. Any review, any place you can review him, if it's Yelp or anywhere else you can find him, please review him.
Yes, thank you. No, that's true. I live on word of mouth. I advertise. I have one, little logo on LS1 Tech, which is basically F-bodies, and that's it. That is the only place I advertise. Everything else is word of mouth.
Sam,
so I think
we can talk about a little Facebook. We can do that offline. We can do it online too, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a Facebook page, but I try not to spam too much there.
Oh, no. But
again,
we can go in the back end.
Friends,
I'll give you some more ideas to blow your mind up.
Okay, all right. But yeah, that's the thing. I live on word of mouth, and unfortunately, everybody's internet enabled, and people who like to bitch tend to do it. They're a lot more willing to get on and complain than they are to say, "Hey, this is good."
Oh yeah, and the thing,
and if you don't like me, fine, say so. I don't care. I mean, I'll live with it. If I deserve it, I deserve it. But
here's my thing: no one should waste their time critiquing things when they could be benefiting themselves or somebody else. I've heard that from so many people that are big online. They get the negative, and that's where the burying. Your fans should be the ones paying attention to that and burying the negative. Be like, no, Sam has helped me with this, this, and this. He knows what he's talking about. He gives me great pricing when he shouldn't. Davies will vouch for that too. But no, I mean, I think I must be doing something right. I mean, the people in the field are copying my parts, which sucks. But it's a certain spring rate or something like that is not exactly patent. Something I can file a patent on. But Shelley might be able to tell you if you can or can't there. Even if you say patent pending for that first year, you could do that. Oh, I've got to throw this in just because you talked to him for an hour. I just started reading a brand new book called Persuasion, so you got to be pre. For something like that, and he's bickering about $4 or $5 or $10 in the future, if you talk to somebody, say, yeah, and I'm not going to charge you $200 for this hour of insight we just spent. They said that's actually magical. If you throw out some big amount for something they're getting free, like, hey, we've been talking for an hour, I'm not going to charge you my $200 hourly rate for that. They said something about that number or throwing a number out will then have them go, oh, yeah.
I'm getting a bargain.
Yes, they're not getting a bargain. You've done something nice for them, and they now will turn around and go, not even thinking about it, they'll go, oh, yeah, this guy's just spent this time with me. He's trying to help me understand this. Most likely that guy got that, and maybe a day or week or month later, obviously didn't send you a check for the extra. If you listen to this, please send Sam the extra money and buy some parts overpriced.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Occasionally, I got a $25 gift card from a guy like last year or something like that, and I'm like, well, that was nice. I mean, it's honestly shocking when something like that happens. It does happen sometimes. But Tony Savini sent me one once from there's a convenience store chain out in the eastern part of the state called Wawa, WAWA, and everybody knows Wawa, but they don't exist where I live. But he doesn't know that, so I got a Wawa card from him in the mail, and I'm like, hey, that's really nice. I'm like, we don't have any, and he's like, what do you mean you don't have any?
Go on, Sam. Go online. I bet you can buy a Wawa shipped. Probably
Oh,
second day free air.
I travel enough. My truck is 3 years old this month. All it does is tow to autocrosses or the odd track event. That truck has 71,000 miles on it.
What year again?
It was a leftover 13.
Oh,
I bought it at the end of 13. So I bought it at the end of 13. So literally, probably last week, it was 3 years old, and it doesn't go anywhere in the winter. You know, I drive my cars, I have winter tires and all that. The truck parks. It just sits. It goes to national tours. It goes to pros. It goes to match tours. It goes to an odd track event. 71,000 miles just doing this stuff. So, I mean, there might be people who are more, I don't know, willing to bend over backwards to sell you something. I'd love to sell you parts. It's my job. But, you know, I want to sell you the right stuff, and I want to be able to see you in an event and have you come up and go, hey, thanks, that really worked. You know, I want you to know, if you happen to be in a Corvette or whatever car I'm in at the time, I want you to know that you know exactly what I have under my car.
Yeah, that's where I answer the phone for sales or Riptide hosting and some other stuff. And I will talk people down like they wanted to sell you what? We had somebody this last week say, how do you make money? Because somebody else, being a big, huge company, quoted them $2,500. I'm like, you're going to be in the door, even if you got the biggest, best thing you want here, like $500 a month, although he's starting at like $150. It's amazing. You really do want to have people you can trust and that are knowledgeable, and that's what you get with Sam.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky. I live in a very, it's kind of podunk, right? It's a very small town, Western Pennsylvania. It's cheap. I live in it's not a big area. It's cheap. You know, the big joke is my truck and my Corvette individually both cost more than my house did. and I have an acre with a really big 2-car garage in Central Air. Small house though.
In Central Air.
You know, well, that's not common where I live, but you know, my building's paid off. I don't have much overhead, you know, except for my cars. Basically, I'm not married. I don't have kids. You know, so I guess I don't feel the pressure necessarily of forcing things down people. I mean, I think about it. I look at the prices, you know, out here at Shelley's or, you know, Northern California and stuff, and I'm like, you know, it makes my head explode. And I'm like, I'd have to do everything I could and cut people's throats and do everything and be a, you know, general jerk just to even try. I don't even think I could stay in business, frankly, you know, in a place like this. So, you know, and I picked up an alignment machine. I'm kind of far away from everywhere, but I live right on I-80. So, you know, people travel back and forth. So, you know, I try and let people know, friends of mine, autocrossers, whatever, hey, you know, you're on your way to Toledo for a pro. You know, you need an alignment. Come a day early. We'll, you know, throw it on my scales. We can align it. You got an autocrosser doing it. You don't have to explain it to, you know, the guy at Discount Tire.
Oh,
you know,
alignments again. I've wanted to have Scott Frazier come out here for that GT3. Like, could you just please come out here and also drive it? Like, can we just have a lesson here? Align it, show us what's going on.
Well, I've learned to fly. I can come out. I mean, I'm no Scott Frazier, but, you know. Well, let's face it, the GT3 he drove, it's not even a stick. I was harassing him the other day. I'm like, you're getting so old, you had to drive a car, you didn't even have to shift it yourself.
Oh, I'm so jealous because that tight turn you talked about. My first run actually drove that turn okay. Did not look at the SoloStorm data correctly between run 1 and 2. I was 7/10 slower on my second and third runs. And so
the showcase on the showcase turn on the east.
Yeah, the showcase pinch.
Yeah.
Salil was a second slower through that section, and yet he wasn't that far off because we did not shut it down for that turn. Whereas Scott, the car could have downshifted for him, and I've missed so many shifts in that freaking GT3. Yeah, I'm more than jealous.
I mean, even with the gearing, you couldn't miss that. I mean, if you missed that corner, you know, and it's like that every year. One thing that people don't seem to realize about nationals is that course, you know, it's slow. I mean, you realize it when it rains because all the water flows that way. But it's downhill to the south, but it's also downhill to the west. You know, so you get into that corner and you've got a little bit of camber helping you. But as you get about halfway around, boom, you're driving downhill now. But it's not, you know, a 5-degree thing. You don't really notice it a lot. So the car, every year we have a turn there because they always force the course designers to put the finishes in the middle. So cars who weigh can get the impound, you know, go right to the scales. So, right? So you're always going to have that at that course. and it always falls away. And it's one of those things about the forensic autocrossing I was talking about. There's things I've noticed about that place. There's some certain, when you're on this place on the course facing uphill, that you're driving into a hill. It's going to help you. It's amazing how many people I mention that to, and they go, "Oh, I didn't know that." And then the West course is kind of different in the fact that it's puffed up in the middle. Like, again, when it rains, you'll notice it. It dries really fast because the middle of the West course is higher than all the edges. That's why I like the showcase turn that always exists that is always there, closest to grid on the West course. How many times have you gone in there and blown that? Car didn't turn as well as you thought. Everybody does it. It's off camber. And yeah, depending on where we're running, there's a big dip coming in there too, depending on what angle you're at. As a matter of fact, we drove over it this year on the way out of the start. There was a big dip going straight out. But yeah, it's stuff like that. And when I set up cars or I talk to people, I mean, it's that kind of thing. Most people don't know me. If they don't know me personally, they don't realize I'm kind of that kind of analytical. But I really am. I'm just not like engineering about it, kind of thing. I'll watch racing on TV and I'll see a car doing something and I'll kind of say, "Oh, hey, a thing looks loose" or something, long before the commentators seem to notice most of the time. So I kind of pride myself in details like that. But you can't catch it all. But I had to find ways to get better because I, again, was, not very good at this when I started, or even for the first couple of years. So,
and that's where, once again, I hope people realize you stuck with it. You just said, hey, you had the at least attitude, I'm going to stick with this and try to figure it out and put the time in.
Yeah, well, I figured it's a car. I know how to drive a car. It can't be that hard to figure out how to learn how to do this.
Yeah, I was perplexed. We've got a steering wheel, a gas pedal, a brake pedal, and we shift once. And that was it. That's all it took for me to go, they beat me by 10 seconds, but we have these couple of things right here, and that's it.
Yep, the devil's in the deal. It's a tenth here, a tenth there, 2 tenths there, And honestly, it's a lot, I don't know, it's pretty gratifying, I guess, when you first start and you start, take off 2 seconds a run or do something like that. The frustrating part, and this is where people, I find a lot of people quit. It's when they're after that last, I don't know, second, half a second, whatever. That is the hardest part. And you can't always get there. You gotta learn to lose. That's for sure. I had a pretty good streak going for quite a while, and was kind of unbeatable for a while, and I haven't had a bad record since. I mean, quite frankly, the first year I went to nationals, I was 51st, like I said. The next year I went back, I was 7th, and I had never been worse than that since. I mean, 7 championships and a bunch of seconds, bunch of thirds. For a while, I had never even been second, actually, until SSR. And, won a bunch, lots. I've won more pro solo championships than national championships, but, I haven't won anything since 2010. And, part of me says, well, that sucks. And then part of me goes, you've been second, third. And, I look over the course of that time in the class I'm running and the names that are in that class. And I've got by miles the highest average of anybody else combined, in there. So I'm like, it's not so bad. And then this year, that's what the big joke was. I'm like, oh, great, I was 12th. That was awesome. But I don't, it became a joke. And I mean, I'm not really that, it pissed me off that I did it and I feel kind of stupid, but the alternative was to drive around cones. And then I've always told people I'd rather, and I tell students this too, I'd rather run the time and cone it away than not run the time at all.
And that's
all I wish.
I wish I would have
That's all I was trying to do.
Known that back in the day. It took me, Alex, who had beaten me maybe the year before, watching. And I left the second day after leading the first day, which I've done before. And I had no clue what I did wrong. And he called me or texted me. He said, you just weren't driving. So something about the choking, if people would call it that or whatever.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize I wasn't driving hard the second day. I just wasn't driving. I've seen that. Matter of fact, I saw that happen in person to a friend of mine in, I don't know, it was the last year I think we were at Topeka. He was leading his class pretty handily, actually, and got swamped. Not swamped, he ended up second, but he got caught from behind and beat. And I watched his first run, and I mean, I don't think he was within 5 feet of any pylon on his first run.
and I blew up his cell phone trying to get a hold of him. I blew up his co-driver's cell phone because that was at Forbes. So I was on the road between the two courses, and I had a good parking spot, and I could see really well, and I could call and tell them what I saw. But if they didn't answer the phone, there wasn't much I could do. And at the end, I finally got a hold of him before his last run, and I'm like, "You're driving not to lose." I'm like, "You can't do that." On the first run especially, unfortunately, I didn't get a hold of him until before his third run.
Yeah.
So by then, well, what do you change? Now you're going, but it's nationals. I can't just throw caution to the wind. I'll screw it all up. And by then, so by then it was too. Shelley says all the time, you got to change a losing game. So I'm like, well, when it didn't work the first two times, you got to do something. I get it. I mean, pressure's tough, and I've been lucky. I've won a bunch of close championships too. I've won some pretty big too, but most people don't know it. I got one by like 29 thousandths. I won another one by 90 thousandths, 17 thousandths. I think a pro solo championship was one year. I've won one by a couple seconds. I've PAX versus nationals. I've done about most everything I can do. Yeah, I want to win again, but I don't know. The older I get, it's less, heartbreaking when I don't, I guess. And all I can do this year at nationals was just laugh. I mean, even now, I just laugh. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess some days you're the bug and some days you're the windshield. And I was certainly the bug.
I feel like those cones are just a little bit too close. You probably were somehow thinking about Kevin Younger's course. It's tight. I've hit a few cones. Here comes day two. It's all Kevin's fault. It's okay. I figured it out for you.
The worst part is the car was awesome. I don't know if I've had a better car over 2 days in Lincoln than the Corvette was this year. It was on the money. I mean, I wasn't fast enough. Being 280 pounds probably doesn't help me at all. But it was good, and I didn't make changes. It wasn't like I did something stupid between the finale and national. The car ran exactly the way it ran at the finale. I threw some people for a loop at the finale because I had a set of A6s that had never been run, and they'd been sitting around. And I'm like, well, I got to use them sooner or later, and A6s and A7s feel a little bit different and stuff like that. So, but after day one of the pro, I said, well, do I want to have sticker tires or not? I'm like, well, it's a finale. It probably makes sense. I'm like, well, do I want to burn my A7, my second set of A7 stickers, at the pro, hoping, and then go in the nationals and not have stickers? At which point I went, screw it, I'm going to put the A6s on. And I rolled a grid of A6s, and I thought people were going to lose their minds. What are you doing? You can't do that. And you could tell, some people thought I was up to something. It was hysterical to watch it. And I'm like, I just kind of shrugged, and I'm like, look, they're not any faster or slower. They feel a little different. I'm like, I don't know. I got nothing to lose. I'm going to try it. and I ran, and the car was tight. It was tight, way tighter than it had been the day before. And I went to impound, and I got out, and Daddy-O walked up to me, and he goes, well? Then I'm like, well, that was a mistake. And he goes, why? And I'm like, car was just super tight. And he goes, oh, no. He goes, that wasn't the tires. Mine did the same thing, on BFGs. And I'm like, oh. And then I talked to a couple other people, and almost everybody went tight in my kind of car. So, I felt a lot better by that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, at least I didn't, completely screw the pooch. But, had I not talked to other people, I just would have thought I made a complete mistake, because I couldn't test it back-to-back there, but I had done it before. So, live and learn. It's how you learn things from. I've got those tires. I'll probably run them at the Dixie Tour or wherever the next time I run the car is.
Believe me, all this talk of Corvettes, every time someone's like, oh, it was my favorite car, one of the best cars. John Ames's 2001 that the Yost own is sitting in my barn. I have no excuse except that I'm not very confident.
Well, I think your rental fee is doesn't your rental fee mean one event a month?
Oh, I'm sure they've said. They're like, oh, you should drive that. I'm like, yeah, let's get the tires.
Dude, you ought to. It really, I think the best part about those cars is simply if you've never actually been in one, a well set up one and stuff, the look on somebody's face the first time they either ride in it or drive one, if they're a good driver, they're always stunned. I remember clearly the first time, like I said, she kind of braced herself going into that big fast slalom, and she goes, "I didn't think these could do that." And it's awesome. I don't know. Maybe it's patriotic or something stupid like that. I don't know. It's like, yeah, America or something.
Well, same thing. It was Jeff Lundgren who got me into this whole craziness. I got in his car, and he's come up to and I'd already driven the course.
I think he's a customer of mine, Jeff Lundgren. I haven't talked to him in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he's autocross lately, but he pulls. I mean, we're flying into something. We have to take a hard right. I'm like, we're about to hit all those cones and go toward grid. He hit the brakes. That thing just sucked down, took off. I was just blown away at the amount of grip that thing had in the front and the braking ability.
Yeah. I think I think there's a stigma like there is to like Porsche owners like to make fun of BMW owners and vice versa and all that other stuff. I know there's a stigma with Corvettes. The whole stupid leather jacket with all the different Corvette insignias all over it. From all the years. And, it's fine. I mean, I laugh about it too, but, it's, if somebody shows up, and looks at SSR most of the time, that stigma goes away pretty quick, because, I don't think any of us have hair plugs. We might, I don't know. I don't know any of us that really wear a big gold chain, although, Mike Moran's B Street car is hysterical because they actually put a giant vinyl gold chain on it, right on the hood. But you can't. I mean, the bang for the buck's amazing. And yeah, it's not the sexiest car maybe anymore or the fastest car, but there's no way you can. There's nothing that comes close on fun for dollar.
So, what's your favorite car out of all the cars you've driven?
Driven or owned?
Let's say owned first, and then we'll go to driven.
Oh God, my favorite car. That I've owned. Either probably the Camaro, probably my white Camaro, the one Darden has now.
All right, Darden needs to start working on you.
Bought it.
Like for the right price, you just fly here and drive it back.
I already own a replacement one. It does my heart good to know that Ogburn bought it and ran it. James bought it and ran it. So to me, it's doing what. It's doing what it was meant to do as far as I'm concerned. It's the first. I mean, I had bought a pickup truck before that, but I ordered that car. It's really it's the first car I ever bought brand new. I think I was 26 or something, and no, I was younger than that, I guess. But it was my baby. I love that car. I still love that car. It does. I literally smile, and Shelley can attest to it. But when I hear it go by or see it go by, I smile. I kind of sometimes will bust people's nuts over it because they both changed it. They took the air conditioning. Like I have a thing. My shit needs to have air conditioning in it, right? Because I am not going to sit in grid and burn my ass off, kind of thing. So when I ran it, it had the stereo in it, the monsoon stereo. It had air conditioning, and I sold it that way. And Dave ripped it out and put a spoiler on it, and I hate those stupid spoilers. I think they look like ass, But
just
I'm like,
weighing the car down. How dare they?
And they yanked the AC. So James said something to me about buying it back. And I'm like, is the AC in it? No. Is the radio in it? No. And I'm like, not interested. Why can't you put that stuff back in? And, I thought about it for about 2 minutes, but the problem is people are weird. And I hate to say it, but the idea of me buying another one, part of it is, and this is before they kind of backed off on the requirement for SSR making a certain stupid number, but if it went away, what did I want to run Hoosiers? What did I want to run that was fun and could run Hoosiers? And really, that's the only thing left, other than taking the Z06 to SSP, which is building SP cars is expensive, right? So that was part of it, and the other part is the muscle car thing is not so much cam. I think that's frankly kind of hokey, the way they're going about it. But, Optima events and stuff like that, they're fun. And if you can take an old car like a Camaro, it's not supposed to be all that fast, and, embarrass some pretty fast cars, it gets people's attention. The problem is, I had already done pretty well in that car, and I kind of figured, if I buy it back, nobody's really going to be surprised if I go kind of quick in it. Because So I said I got to start with a different one. So that's kind of, and then I got a screaming deal on a car that a customer of mine used to own. That had some parts. I'm changing some parts on it, but I gotta. And listen up, kids. I bought an ESP Camaro that was third at Nationals in 2013 with double adjustable Penske's and a set of Bogart wheels and good Hoosiers for $9,000. Wow. So if you want to go fast, there are street repair ways to do it. And by the way, the car is completely streetable. So all this, wah about street repair cars can't be driven on the street, it's complete bunk. And I drove that white car all over the place. It had a trailer hitch on it when I sold it. So, and that's the next best thing to a Corvette. Right? It's V8, it's rear drive, it makes fun noises. How can you beat it? So, yeah, I don't know. I will vouch for that white car any day. I think it's a little too stiff. I think they made it too stiff personally, but it's not my car anymore, so I can, and I've known James a long time, so I can harass him if I want. But he may not like it, but I will.
So, what's your favorite car? Haven't owned, but you've driven at some point and loved it.
Excluding exotics that I can never own or anything.
Well, give us a few then. You can have an exotic or two. Maybe a Ferrari stood out to you.
Like I said, I think I'd be very happy, probably with a GT4 or a 997-2. I'd take either of those. I don't think I've been around like 458 Italias or anything enough to. They don't really, do that much for me. It's going to be stupid. My favorite car that I've ever autocrossed, and I think I miss to this day, was not mine. But it's kind of hard for me to not say Mike's Shelby, the black Shelby. I think I won. I lost 3 events in 3 years in that car.
What years were you driving that?
7, 8, and 9. And that was, that was the car I packed first in at Nationals one year. That's the car I won the overall for Pro Solo. I won 3 years straight in F-Stock. It was just awesome. It was fun. It made good sounds. It wasn't really fast. It's 320 horsepower, in a 3,400-pound car. It's not super fast. It's really not fast now. So Mike actually missed it so much, we ended up selling it, or he ended up selling it to CarMax, of all people, because we couldn't sell it otherwise. I bought my 5-liter. We had both cars for a while. I bought the 5-liter for business because, it was a new car, and I said, well, now it's time to do this. I won in that car in F-Stock. Tried to go to ESP with it, but the electrical problems made it where it wouldn't stay running right half the time. So I had to dump it. But Mike, in the meantime, said, well, we've kind of done what we've done with the Shelby. We're not going to do anything else with it, whatever. He sold it to CarMax because nobody else would buy it. $25,000. This is in 2010, I guess, maybe early 2011. A week later, a guy calls going, hey, I want to buy your car. And we're like, well, it's gone. Guess where to go? And we told him, and he called that CarMax. It's gone. They've sent it to South Carolina. It was gone. He chased that car down. He knew what we wanted. He paid almost $30,000 for it then, because he knew what the car. It was the most flattering thing ever. He knew what the car was. He saw it on the cover of Sports Car, and he wanted that car. Then after he found the car and bought it, then he wanted all the parts that we had stripped off of it. And he bought everything, the Volk wheels, the other set of wheels, the cone, I guess we had left the conies on it, but we took other stuff out, And he bought all that stuff. And then he goes, well, now I need all the decals. So he bought all the decals from Little Mike Snyder, to make it look like the way we ran it. And it's very flattering. And the funny thing is, he must be a Mustang freak. He actually sent me a note. I have an old A sedan Fox body that I have for sale. I ran it. It's my track car. It's cheap. But, it's caged and has a fire system and stuff. He actually sent me a note on Facebook 2 weeks ago. And, I think I want your Fox body.
That CarMax.
And I'm like, nope, good, dude. $5,900 and it's yours with 3 sets of wheels and everything. It's a great car, but, the Camaro is a better car for my business. Fox Mustangs. Everybody does that. I don't need to get into that mess. I bought it because it was a fun car to track. It makes good sounds, but, and I've upgraded it a lot. But So, yeah, it's kind of funny, and I'm like, well, that's flattering. I mean, it's kind of weird, like I've been once or twice. I've been at an event and had like a little kid walk up and ask for my autograph, just because they were there and I'm racing, I guess, or something like that. And I'm like, oh, if they're little kids, I don't want to make them feel this. I'm like, okay, find something for them. It's really weird. I'm sure other people have had it happen, obviously, because they don't know me from Adam. But I don't know. It's neat. There's a lot of neat little stories. And
can you pick a favorite memory or something that really stands out, or a couple of them?
Favorite memory. Yeah, I mean, I probably the two Driver of Eminence things, when I won and when Shelley won. I had no idea. Frankly, I didn't think it was even possible. So I don't even know who nominated me. I to this day don't know. Nobody will tell me. But I can ruffle some feathers here and there, and I know that and stuff like that. I'm blunt, but I'm not generally mean. But I knew something was up because I forget. It was the year I built the course at Nationals, so I was setting up the course and doing other things, and I was just tired, and I didn't want to go to the Wednesday banquet. And Shelly's like, no, you have to go. And I'm like, and next thing I know, I'm like, fine. I'm like, what is going on? Something is going on. No, nothing's going on. Next thing I know, we go back to the hotel, we get showered. She comes out in this really nice dress. And I'm like, all right, now I know something's going on. What the hell is happening? And she wouldn't tell me until we got there. And then, sitting there, how this banquets are. Everybody's kind of talking a little bit. And they're talking, and the echo's real bad, and how it is in that event center. And, I'm laughing about something at the table, not super loud or anything like that, but I really wasn't paying attention. Next thing I know, Shelly kicks me in the leg, and she goes, will you listen? And I'm like, oh. So I turn around and start listening, and I forget what they got to or what Howard was saying or whatever, but then I realized, I'm like, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Mm-hmm. And then I went, holy shit, wait a minute, I've done that and that, oh crap. And then it kind of dawned on me what might be happening. So I didn't expect that. That was probably the biggest one. And then when Shelley won hers, because I don't think, I don't think people know how fast she is, but also how giving she is. She'll bend over backwards for you. And way too much, as far as I'm concerned, for me or anybody else for the most part. And sometimes ladies get shortchanged about things, I think, sometimes to some degree, about their driving or whatever. But she's scared enough guys, I think, enough times that she's probably the only one who thinks that, she's not pretty damn quick. I mean, she has moments that, she struggles a little bit, but she also has moments that she will terrorize plenty of guys. So those two are probably my favorite, because I never expected to win it for myself, and I can't imagine anybody more deserving than she was.
Nice. If you can drive anybody's car out there at any event that you've driven or haven't driven but would like to, what really would tickle your fancy?
I don't know. The R8 looks pretty cool. Mitch's car. I don't know Mitch, so I don't know if he would ever let me, but I have never actually met him formally. It just sounds neat and looks like a cool car to run. Mod cars, I don't know. Mod cars don't really do it for me. I don't know why. But having said that, watching Marshall Grice come up that slalom in KJ's car this year was pretty damn impressive. Although I think I might have been scared actually to do that. So I don't know. I drove Maryland's FSAE car once, and it makes a stupid amount of downforce, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It makes so much downforce. It doesn't. I like things that slide around. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think I've driven most things I would want to be honest with you. I think the R8 would just be neat because it sounds nice and it's different, and it looks different, but I've driven Porsches and, Ferraris and Corvettes, and to me, street repair cars are the most kind of fun. And I don't know. There's not a lot in street repair that I haven't driven. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Sorry. It's not a Civic.
It's okay
sorry.
If you've driven everything already and you've got what you want. It's fine. That's fine.
I've not driven everything, but
Do you think? Would you suggest to people to drive lots of cars or not? Is it helpful for skills? Maybe at the beginning, no, or beginning, yes.
I mean, if you have a good basis, yeah, it's real helpful. If you don't, if you're just learning, stick with what you're learning in. You don't need to pollute the water with a bunch of data. I think it's very helpful for me, or anybody who's pretty well experienced. I think it's pretty helpful because you can feel different things and see how different things react, and in the end, to me, understeer's understeer and oversteer's oversteer, and I don't really care if the car's all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, big power, little power, whatever. They kind of all do the same things. But they do it differently. It might happen faster in this car, slower in that car, whatever. So yeah, I mean, I learn a lot from driving a lot of different cars. I'm lucky to have ended up in that position, to teach schools and then have this business, where people ask me to drive their stuff.
Lucky Smucky, you put in a lot of effort and got good at what you were doing. What did you just learn car setup and stuff by experimenting yourself? It was also talking with people like Tim.
Well, Tim didn't know anything about it. It's all hard-earned knowledge. That's always the big joke. People talk about frequencies a lot, suspension frequency and this and that and all this other kind of crap, and I literally just in fact, I don't know if it came up because I didn't hear the whole podcast from JV, but I think it was at Wilmington last year. John said something to David Whitener about modeling the suspension on the BMW, and when they were done, I completely, to this day. So JV, when you're listening, this is coming. I rip him constantly. And any chance I get, when he asks me a question about something, I generally shrug and go, I don't know, maybe you should model it. Because I don't model anything. It's, now maybe if I was building a mod car from scratch, you'd have to do that. But when you're talking about a street repair car, you can't move pickup points. There's only certain things you can do, right? So I'm much more trial and error and common sense. How's the car acting? How's it behaving? What's it doing? Is it yanking the front tire 8 feet off the ground? And that's the thing. I guess I work from the bottom up more than anything. And in the end, I have to be able to drive it. So I don't care what the math says. If somebody were to check the suspension frequencies, and I know this, I don't remember what the numbers are, on the Camaro, the way I ran it and did really, really well in it, they would think I'm nuts. But it works. And it not only does it work, it rides super well on the streets. I've raced against Ken Monishi and Tom Barry and the same kind of cars that weighed less than my car did, and won. And those guys don't suck, right? So, in fact, that's how I met Kenny Monishi, and he feels bad to this day. He didn't actually know this happened, but we were at Heartland Park, and it was the year, for some reason, they decided to roll all our cars across the scale in the tech shed, and we had done it, and turns out Henry Botkin's car, which is the car he was driving, was, it had the AC ripped out, had drill brake rotors, all this other crap, and bigger wheels too. And it was 150 pounds lighter than my car. And we were standing there in impound waiting, and we had seen that. And I don't know how it came up. I didn't really know Ken, at all. And I'm not small now, but I was bigger then. Not, don't like to admit that, but I was. And I knew what I was. I was like, I don't know, 302, I think, or something. And Ken just looks at me, and he doesn't know me, and I didn't know him. And he asked me what my car weighed. I said what Henry's car weighed. I'm like, damn, 150 pounds lighter. And I just kind of shook my head. And he very innocently, now that we know each other, we joked about this, but he goes, well, he just looked at me, he goes, well, what do you weigh? And I'm like, it's like asking it's asking a woman her age or, whatever. You don't ask a fat guy what he weighs, and it kind of pissed me off because, I'm like, God. And I thought about it for a minute, and I'm like, oh, well, wait, if he's freaked out about the fact the car's 150 pounds lighter and I'm winning, this will really freak him out because I don't know what Kenny is, 140 pounds maybe, right? So I'm like, I don't know, let's find out. And I walked right over to the scale and and he looked and saw the number, and he did the math. You could see him, and he's like, oh, holy crap. And I'm like, yeah. I said, I figure that's roughly, 300 pounds lighter in total? And he's like, ugh. So, it's kind of complicated. He did it. He started it. That's what I tell people all the time. But he's like, I'm sitting El Toro this year. He's like, I had no idea. I didn't offend you. I hope I didn't offend you. And I'm like, dude, it's all good. It's fine.
Well, people like me, we're just trying to make the car lightweight because we don't know what else to do to it. Or that's my excuse because I haven't played around enough that I'm like, well, and yet I still haven't done everything I would do.
Yeah.
But I can weigh 2 parts and go, that one weighs less. Okay.
How do you know? I mean, like I said, so in 15, I lost to Grant by 0.004 of a frickin' second, right? If I weighed 5 pounds less, would that have been enough? Sure. If I ran my car without a full tank of fuel, would that have been enough? And of course, people in retrospect, since then have said, well, you're like one of the only ones that runs a full tank. And I'm like, uh-huh. And I run a full tank all the time, and it's fast. And I'm like, and believe me, I can point to 3 different mistakes that I made personally that cost me 0.004 of a second or more.
Exactly.
No doubt. I mean, sure, some part of you will always go, gee, if only. But, you can't see. Whatever, it happens. It's over.
Oh, you need to tell Kim to make up for saying that and asking you to do things like that. He needs to be on the show. I need to have you pressure him.
I'll send him a Facebook message. I don't know how to get a hold of him personally other than that, but I will send him a Facebook message.
Yeah, I've already talked to him, and he seemed a little shy. Yet he's one of the funnier guys.
Yeah, he is. Nice guy.
Once I get him on the show, Matthew Braun will probably definitely have to come on the show. He wanted to wait until after Nationals. Well, it's after Nationals already, so yes.
I would love to hear that one. Only because did you ever see the article Shelley wrote about Hayward? Somebody asked her to write an article because she knows both of us. She's friends with both of us. Well, at the time, but we're just completely different. So it's the coolest article. I'll have to see if she can send you a copy of it.
Yes, I'm making a note of it.
Cats and dogs. Basically, she equated us to a cat and a dog. And it's exactly, she's right on the money because I'm very kind of like, I'm a skeptic about things and I'm always questioning things and, like raising an eyebrow, kind of thing. And Matthew's just kind of like, yeah, all right, whatever. And we're just, completely opposite. And that's how she correlated. And it's hysterical. Anybody who knows the two of us will go, yeah, that's pretty much right. And to Matthew's credit, long story, I had to protest, sadly. Unfortunately, I had to protest the car he was driving. No fault of his own.
Oh, the vet. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. He actually, through a long course of events, in the midst of this or early on in the process, I kind of figured I knew something was wrong because our practice start times, our 60-foot times were the same, but at 200 feet, I was down 2 or 3 tenths of a second per side in the same car. And I'm like, something's not right. Something's just not right. And I was doing something. I forget what I was doing. But I asked Mike, I gave Mike 2 tickets. And because I asked Matthew what he was launching at, and he told me, and that's the thing. I will give him credit for all this stuff to the end of the earth. And it killed me that this happened to him. But I went, I said, Mike, I got to go do this. Give Matthew these tickets. Get him to make starts in my car. I want to see, because of course, immediately when I started kind of wondering what was up, people around me, who were maybe more friendly toward him than me or whatever, it was, well, look how much smaller Matthew is than you. Or they run, they're not running a full tank of gas. So between you and the gas, the car's lighter. And I'm like, well, that's great. And you would think that would make a difference on 60 foots, but it's not. It's making a difference from 60 to 200, right? The next phase of the course. So Matthew said, yeah, I'll do it, but only if Sam asks me. So I'm like, God damn it. So I went back with the tickets. I'm like, will you please do 2 starts in my car? At which point he went, yeah, all right. He hops in the car, and he knew I thought something was up. He goes, well, what should I launch at? And I'm like, no. I'm like, you do exactly what you were doing in his car. I'm not saying a word. I want to see what's going on. And he went, okay. So he does a start, basically the exact same 200 foot I was running. Comes back, and this is the thing, to his everlasting credit, no matter what anybody ever says, about Matthew and I's relationship or whatever, I will go to my grave telling people this. First thing he says to me when he gets back after his first side, I'm like, well, and he goes, he kind of like furls his eyebrows up a little bit, and he goes, I don't know. his car pulls a lot harder over 4,000 RPM. At which point, the back of my head, I went, bingo, right? And I'm like, huh. And he goes, well, what should I do different? I'm like, no. I'm like, just do it exactly the same. Whatever you think you should do, you do. So we did the second side, same result, same 200-foot time I ran. So at that point, I knew it was, it was the car and not him or me or, whatever else. So, when the whole thing, even while it was going down, while we filed paperwork, it was at Spring Nationals, we were walking the course together at Spring Nationals. And Matthew's cracking jokes like, I don't know, I think the extra power is going to really help me here, because the car owner had sworn to him the car was legal. And there was a lot of other nasty things that happened, like him trying to throw me off the scent, not Matthew, the other guy. And I just kind of sloughed it off and didn't really say much. And long story short, yeah, the thing was cheated up. And Matthew was devastated because he was lied to. And he lost wins, because of it and stuff. And I felt horrible to the point that on the way back, I called Matt. We stopped. Shelley and I stopped in Chicago and called him. And I'm like, are you okay? I mean, we're not friends, like close friends. We're friendly, I think. But, and he's like, I just can't believe you did it happen. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I didn't, I don't want this to reflect on you. So I told everybody, I'm like, Matthew had no idea. He didn't. It wasn't his car. He had no idea. He only knew where the guy told him. So, yeah, I don't know. He may not feel the same way about me, but I actually like him a lot. So he can be a little standoffish sometimes, I guess. But
so I should note that should be a question. Do you love Sam as much as Sam loves you?
Sure, try. I'd be interested to see what the answer is. But
Matthew, you got to come on. We got to know. I'll get you two together. We'll give you each a beer or a drink somewhere, and I'll get the mics out. Yeah.
No, I mean, he broke, he ended up in Brian Schaefer's car after that, and at the Toledo Pro, Brian's car broke or something. I guess it broke or something like that. And, I mean, I just walked over to him, and I don't think I made the challenge, or I was already out or something, But I just tossed him the keys to my, the key fob in my car, and I'm like, have at it. Then, he did, that was later, I think it was that same year, maybe it was the next year, but, I didn't ask him for anything or whatever. Car was broken. He needed a ride. Gave him a ride. So I think I might have later at some point, said, by the way, that's what a legal one feels like, but it was just a joke. So I don't know. Like I said, good people, I think. If I needed a ride, I'm sure he'd probably give me one. So
he made me drive his car. I was like, no, I just want to ride with you.
I don't want to drive his car. Thanks.
I told him, but he made me do it. I'm like, this is crazy. I just want to ride with you. And then he felt guilty and finally came back and took me for that ride.
Yeah. Well, you could drive mine. I mean, I don't know. But it would have been interesting. Did you drive his?
Yes, he made me. He wouldn't let me. He wouldn't take me for a ride. He goes, no, you drive it. I don't drive vets. I've driven one once.
Yeah. Let me guess. It had terminal understeer.
Well, he told me I would drive somebody else's car better. But I didn't know. He didn't tell me what I could. I mean, had I ridden with him first, I would have tried to emulate him, honestly, just because I haven't been in them much.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's what was so amazing on that practice course. You had those offsets, and then they either decreased a little bit, and then you had that final big right sweeper. He basically got to the apexes, especially the last two or three, slammed on the brakes, pointed the car straight to the next one, went straight, slammed on the brakes, made the car pivot, and went straight. It was,
and I carved them.
Yes, and it was bizarre.
Yeah.
Now he kind of carved the first ones like you did, but it was just bizarre what he did. So I got in the GT3 with Salil, and we were doing practice runs, and I tried that on two of those, and maybe because I hit the brakes hard enough, it rotated or did something. And he's like, "Do you see that time you just ran?" I said, "All I tried to do was copy him and cut distance." So once again, I'd love to be able to combine the best out of you guys, depending on which portion of the course, because he just absolutely cut distance. He said, I don't believe in setting up. And I believe him.
Yeah, no, I believe him too. I mean, and sometimes it works, in his favor, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it's the same way for me. There were certain people in the past, like, unfortunately he's gone now, he passed away, but there was a guy named Chris Lindbergh that ran F-Stock, and super, super nice guy. He ran a Mustang, and good friends with Marcus Meredith, but Chris drove. He was super smooth. I mean, just boring smooth, right? And kind of like Jason Burns is in a way. And it got to the point where I would recognize when Chris was beating me. It was usually on courses that had like stair steps. They weren't really slaloms. It'd be like a couple offsets and then a bigger offset and a couple offsets. And I would try and overset that stuff up. And Chris wouldn't. He wouldn't bomb at them like Matthew does necessarily, but it was just kind of like more point to point, kind of less dramatics and setup and all that other kind of stuff. And, so consequently he never dropped a wheel into the dirt or, whatever. And, that's the thing. I pay attention to a lot of that stuff. I may not always be able to make use of it, but it got to the point where I would recognize, all right, pretty much this is the way this works. When Chris is ahead of me, it's because, I'm taking too great a pains to kind of set something up. And I'm covering too much ground somewhere. And that's exactly what it was. Just like I know when Jason gets ahead of me, it's usually because I'm being too aggressive. I'm overpowering the rear tire, sliding the car around too much, doing something like that.
And that's so key to know, once again, your style versus their style. And if it's not in the normal balance, what you can then think about. And I would think this could even apply to racing if you're in a local area with somebody or know somebody really well you race against. To really know if you're off by very much, hey, if you've watched them enough, you know how they drive, and you can compare that to how you are driving. That's very interesting.
It's kind of like, in a stupid way, it's kind of like paxing. Yeah. I kind of use it like an index factor in a way. It's a pattern, and I go, oh, I know why this is happening. So, and that's the thing. I don't even necessarily change, how I approach the course, other than I might go, all right, I know it's going to be in a transitional section, for instance, when it came to Chris. Or with Jason Burns, I know it's going to be some place that I'm probably doing a little too much Duke boy, yeehaw, crossed up kind of shit. And that's the thing. So, if it's this person, I kind of know that it equates to this happening. And then I just kind of go out on my next run and go, all right, well, I gotta, keep the tail more behind me. Just in general everywhere. But, if it's a surface I know, like DC, like a FedEx Field or something like that, there's certain sections that are bumpier, and that is more common, more prone to happen in those sections.
You can't know that lot. It changes surface. It's like a big bowl. I've been there once. I drove
I know that lot.
All the way there and back. And now I do believe people can know it. It was my worst pro experience in quite a while.
Well, it's now all sealed the same way. But, yeah, I run there all the time, so that's why I laugh when people talk about, San Diego, it's on this big hill. I've never been to San Diego, but I'm like, it's this big hill. You can't believe it. And I'm kind of going, I bet I could.
Oh, yeah. At least where I raced way back when in D.C. was more sloped. Like, both of the pro courses were sloped, whereas in San Diego, I don't know if they've done a pro there. I've never done one there. Yes, it slopes and comes back down and has some weird things. It seemed really gravelly, but, oh, my goodness, D.C. just blew my mind.
Well, it depends which lot. We had a better lot for a while, but they're both steep as hell. The one we run in now sucks more, sadly, but the other one has solar panels above it, so we're out.
This is well worth the wait you made me wait for you, buddy. I appreciate it. This
Sorry.
is fun. Oh, no, that's fine.
All right. Well, anybody, feel free to – I don't bite. Contrary to popular opinion, usually. So if you have a question, come ask. I'm pretty friendly. I might make some stupid joke. Some people think I have biting wit. Some people think I'm just an asshole. But, if you get to know me especially, I think I'm one of those guys that's a pretty good ally.
Well, yeah, and the big thing is you have knowledge and you're trying to be very helpful. That's really what your business model, in my mind, is built around. Well,
even business aside, if you have a problem at an event or something and I can help, I'll do my best to do so, If I don't know you and you've never seen you before and I have an open seat in my car, I can't guarantee you I will just plop a complete stranger into my car or anything like that. But, I did that this year. Mark Labance's car broke, and, I stood on my freaking ear trying to glue everything together, and I got Lester a ride in somebody else's car, and I put Labance in my car for A Street, and, now Labance is trying to sell his Grand Sport for Z06, which is pretty hysterical. But, and he, at the very end, he goes, well, actually, wasn't even the end. He looked at me when he was driving on the practice course, and he goes, I never asked you, what do you want for the ride? And I'm like, I remember I kind of looked around. I'm like, nothing. They're your tires. And he's like, really? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's flat. I don't know what he expected me to say. But I'm like, no, dude, we're good. It's fine. You're going to put, 9 runs on the car between the practice course and nationals, or 10 or whatever. I'm like, if it breaks, it was going to break anyway. So whatever. So, yeah, if I can help. He's a customer. Obviously I'm much more willing probably to help somebody who I'm associated with, but, even if I don't know you, I'll do what I can.
And that's one thing I do love about the sport is so many people are just, hey, your car broke, hop in. I do love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunately a little hard with this particular car, or any of these bigger cars, but the Z06 is actually worse. I would have been much more inclined, frankly, to put people in the Grand Sport. The problem with the Z06 is it makes a lot of torque. Problem is it's geared very tall, so it's kind of like, it's weird. You pick up speed a lot faster than you think you are, and because it doesn't make nearly the amount of, racket that the Grand Sport does, because it's not turning as many RPM. But and then as it comes up the rev range, it gets really stupid around 4,500 RPM, and if you're not expecting it, like the power doesn't lay off like an LS3 does. It just kind of keeps going ballistic. And when we first switched back from the Grand Sport to the Z06, literally the first run Mike Snyder made was the Toledo Pro, and they had these real fast wallums, and he turned, and they were 5-cone wallums. He got by the first one, he center punched the second one, center punched the third one, knocked both fog lights right out of the car. And I didn't even know he did that. I just saw him hit all the cones, which pissed me off, right? So he comes back. Other people saw the fog lights weren't in there, but I was busy checking tires and stuff. We got done, and as I'm trying to piece the front bumper cover back together, and because I ripped the screws out and everything. This is a car I bought, a week before. I said to him, excuse the French, but I looked at him, I'm like, what happened? And he looked at me, and I've known him like a long time, right? And he goes, I had no idea I was going that fast. And I'm like, what? Because I had driven the car. I owned my other one, and he had driven it with me, but it had been, a year and a half since I had it. And I had been driving this one on the street, so I, was kind of used to the LS7 again. And it didn't make sense to me at first. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know you were going that fast? And he goes, I swear I didn't know I was going that fast. And then we kind of talked about it a little more, and that's exactly what happened to him. He put his foot on the gas, and the thing accelerated, but it didn't sound, I guess, I don't know if he didn't compute what he was seeing on the course fast enough or whatever, but he just got to those walls way quicker than he thought, and he just couldn't make them.
But I bet he was having fun not making them.
Well, probably until we were putting the car back.
Yeah.
And it's an airport site, so they threw us out at 8 o'clock. They're like, get out! And I'm like, God damn it, now I got to get here at 6 a.m. to fix this shit. But, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. Any place, especially if there's nothing hit, try the Spring Nationals. Try it. I might just force you to try it like Matthew did.
I could believe that. Like, no, I just want to ride with you. Drive the car. I don't know how to drive a vet.
That's Matthew, though. Just drive it. Yeah, that's very...
Yeah. No, you drive it first. Like, I don't want to drive. I just want to ride with you.
Well, I'm glad I got to take you for a ride. I mean, all the years we've been around, I guess, I don't know if it was what you thought or, what you expected or not, but
I've ridden with so few of people outside of this region that that was the most fun I've had in autocross ever. Because I've never gotten in cars with people and had people jump in my little car and drive around. So that was a blast.
I can wait. Next time I'll have to try it on a set of R comps.
Something tells me I'm gonna figure that out this year. I've already got a little bit of a plan figured out to maybe get a C5 and some R comp. Well, maybe not R comp actually. No, I haven't. Maybe not, but yeah, I should.
Well, whatever you need, tire pressures. I mean, if you're gonna drive John, I don't know if it still has the good shocks on it and stuff, but.
Yeah. Plus, here's the real plan. John has another one, and he's been driving it, but he's been driving it in the street class.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I get it. Even people who, I mean, I tell people I have wheels for both things. I tell people a lot. I'm like, look, we'd all have an SSR. To me, it's the stock class equivalent of CP or F stock was back in the day. We like each other. We all get along. I mean, basically right now we're all from the same area, right? But you can't. It's a riot. I mean, it really is. The things those cars can do, and anybody who stood there and watched, and I know, I mean, it's not lost on any of us. We draw a crowd. Most people know when we're running, and they usually show up to watch because something good's going to happen usually. But you can't. I mean, the speed those cars make, and they're frankly easy on tires, and the A7 wears so much better than the A6. But some services are hard on tires, so I tell people, I'm like, look, so buy a second set of wheels. Most people have a set anyway. Buy a set of BFGs or Bridgestones or whatever fits your car. I'm like, run them locally. Then you have to use one set of Hoosiers for the entire year.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Do both. Double dip. That's what I did. I won a bunch of tires in both classes.
That's what Matthew was doing. He was driving over there on the BFGs.
Yeah, well, the thing about Matthew is, and I would never dream to do this, he was actually making shock changes on, figuring out his shocks.
Oh, yeah,
on
the tires.
I'm like, but you're on BFGs, and he had big BFGs squeezed on, which they don't like.
The front really big.
Yeah, I run a completely different shock setup. Well, not the shocks are the same, but the setting setup between the BFGs and the Hoosiers, and I don't run the BFGs squeezed on. So I'm like, you're nuts. And this is the thing I told him, because and Matthew will tell you, so I don't know anything about the car, but I just turned off so it works. And I'm like, you're insane, to do this. You're trying to. I went up there. I'm like, are you running A Street for the tour? He's like, no. And I'm like, well, why are you running on BFGs up here? And he goes, well, I'm trying to figure out my shocks. And I'm like, but you're running on A7s for down there. And I mean, just the A6 to the A7 was so different that the A7's a lot stiffer across the middle. I actually softened my shocks for A7s from A6s. So basically I run BFGs, my front shocks are almost full stiff. Hoosiers, they're, I don't know, maybe a third of the way up.
And these are single adjustable, or you have doubles?
No, singles.
That's right, you said that earlier.
Mine are off the shelf. Every championship I've won has been on off-the-shelf shocks, which is what makes me laugh. Oh, you got to have this and that and $13,000. I mean, there's times and places to do it, certain cars and things like that. But I'm a very big believer in don't piss with your shocks until you run them full stiff and the car keeps going faster until you run out of adjustment. Then start messing with shocks. But, why put more on the car if you don't need more? I mean, if you're not running them full stiff anyway, like guys buy cars and they automatically revalve them before they've ever driven the car. And I'm like going, okay.
Have money, will spend.
Yeah. I mean, we revalved John's Motons 3 times on the front. And every time we do, we keep going, this will be enough, and we keep running out of rebound. But the bump's full soft, and the rear shocks are basically full soft.
Oh, wow. Like,
so,
okay,
including even on 315s. Yeah. So, it's strange. I mean, I'm to a point now where even I'm like, we're well past where I thought we would ever be on rebound on that car. And I'm not usually a fan of it. And if you would have asked me if that was going to be the case 3 years ago, I'd be like, you're nuts. But I'm a realist, and I'm like, well, no, it's not nuts. I mean, not right all the time. Just shrug and go, okay. Well, let's put more in it and see what happens.
Oh, someday I'll turn a knob again.
All right, have fun editing this.
Al, I won't edit too much. I mean, I overtalked some, so I wrote those things down, and obviously the times when it hung up. But no, I'm trying to get better. I'm not trying to edit so damn much, but I become OCD-ish. I'm like, oh look, I can take out a little bit of time right there, a little bit of time. I'm like, no, stop. That's where I went to Houston, and I'll let you get off the phone. There were 6 of us, and I have not done that one yet because there's 6 different things I can edit, 6 different tracks. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to make her louder on this part, and I started doing it and I haven't finished. I'm like, oh, that scares me. But
well, I think it's awesome you're doing this, and I haven't had a lot of time to listen to many, but I've enjoyed the hell out of them.
Yeah, no, I think
the ones I have heard.
I'm glad when I thought to do it, Michael O'Neill's out there in California, I was doing a little podcast thing off and on and driving the truck recording crap. And I go, I think I should do one for autocross and talk to all these people. He's like, yes. And since he's been doing it for real, making money with it, I actually did this one properly. Like, he goes, no, you have to have music intro and an introduction. And I was thinking, yeah, right. But I learned so much how to do it properly that it actually shows up now and people can search for it. So I'm glad it's a blast too. I mean, it sounds like you've talked to lots of people about autocross, but I don't generally do this. So this is the first time or this whole past year of calling and just saying, hey, what do you think about this? It is a blast. Mm-hmm. Lots of ideas.
Well, anything I can do to help, let me know. And thanks I'm flattered, for you asking. And sorry it took so long to happen.
Oh, no, that's where I'm hoping this stuff, that's where you're in the business or I'm hoping it benefits, you. So that's where the more people that have anything they do, I want people to know what other people do. That's always
That'd
helpful.
be great. It was fun. I like to talk autocross anyway, so that'll be just a nice side benefit if that's
If nothing else, I really do hope you get some reviews that bury anything negative, because we as a community should know to do that, but people don't know to do that. They don't even think about it. So. Hopefully.
Well, I just think, there's a lot of autocrossers, and if we just take care of each other, and not just me selfishly, right? Whether it's Jeff at Pro Parts or, or whoever. There's a pretty good amount of knowledge. I'm a little different. I'm not so specialized like they are, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'll get you side steps for your truck, or a bed cover or whatever. So that's the thing. If you're looking for a part, let me know. But I like to mess with this particular stuff. But if you want to have the biggest bang, I'm very practical about what works, and and I spend my money too, no matter what I can deduct, because it's still spending money, right? I still spend more than I can deduct, I guess, and I hate wasting money, so I treat everybody else's money the same way I would treat my own. Maybe unfortunately, when it comes to like Danny Kao, I'm a lot more conservative with my money than he is with me.
I've realized I'm silly. I've never bought a new car, but I have plenty of damn cars. I could buy or not any car, but I could buy a lot of cars if I just sell all these freaking projects I have.
Sure.
It's
well, Shelly's never bought a new one, but look at the car she's got.
Yeah,
They're awesome.
Exactly. Oh, that's these car things. I sold a Chevy Sprint Turbo. Of course, owning 3 of those is not a good thing. So I'm like,
you had those too? That's a sickness in Colorado,
no,
isn't it? Between you and Van?
Well, so I own the race one, all because of Van and Kevin Wenzel, who said, don't buy the other car, buy this. They're fast. Oh, my goodness. Thinking I wanted to learn SP. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I hate this thing. I can't turn the steering wheel. Of course, you put 13x10s on a car that came with 4-inch wide wheels. Scrub radius. I now understand that. I wish somebody would have told me that before I custom ordered wheels. So that's still sitting there, and Van started talking about building it again. I'm like, dude, you don't turn wrenches at all, and I don't want to turn wrenches anymore. Who are you going to pay to do this? So, but I had another one I bought for $1,400. Flew to Dallas, drove it back here, barely made it. Sold it for $500 a month or two ago. Best thing I've ever done. Like, I got rid of a car. I'm like, I have 2 or 3 other Civics that have never become track cars that need to go bye-bye.
I had no idea that you were part of the Sprint sickness. I thought that was Van and Van alone.
No, I bought that car has a Cusco limited slip after I tried to send a Crown Gear to Australia to have one made. Only I found Cusco makes them to fit the OE. And then I have double adjustable conies all the way around, which are better than most of the shocks I've owned, on a car that's worth nothing. Nothing. Like we didn't even go through and even check the engine. I'm like, Van, it probably could be fast if you could get rid of the pop-off valve thing they wrote the letter for. If they would treat that like a bypass valve, we could get more boost. He's ecstatic about it. Kevin was going to make that whole fancy rear suspension that was on this EPCRX. I forget what it's called. Mm-hmm. He was going to do all that, and then he got busy and didn't finish the Mega Squirt for my Civic. I'm like, I need to go back to stock is probably what I should be doing anyway, but...
Well, every time I go back from street repair to stock, the excuse is, well, it's easier. But it's also the thing about ESP cars is they're easy because they make a lot of power. You don't have to worry about them breaking stock. Because you can add power. And you can, hell, on a Camaro, the 1711s fit with no work. You don't have to flare anything. You barely have to roll the rear fender.
Oh,
that's so nice. It's awesome. But then I look at John V's car, and I have one too that I could build, and I'm like going, I've seen what he's gone through on that car, and I don't really want to be any part of that.
Yeah, and then we realize, Wenzel's like, you realize you're competing with people that have been doing this for 20 years on the same car. I'm like, I just want to tell Van, you can have this car, but you should not be doing this.
Right. Do something else with it. Track it. Do something else.
Oh, it should be a chump car, although those things weigh 1,400-something pounds. We could get to 1,450 in SP trim. It will rip itself apart.
Well, how much power? What do they make? What's it making? What are they, 70 horsepower stock, right?
Yeah, something like that. They're torquey. It's a 1 liter. It's a 3-cylinder 1 liter. If we can get rid of if the pop-off valve thing would be removed from the rules, yeah, you could maybe, just because of its straight line power, do something. But
I don't know. I don't know if the words "it's a 1 liter and it's torquey" have ever been put together anywhere else in this world.
Well, we're at altitude, and I'm driving a Civic where I floor it all the time.
Turbo.
Yeah, it's a little turbo.
That's true.
That's the whole thing.
I think when we hang up, I'm going to go out and find that. I don't know if you've been on Facebook, but I'm going to go find that big container that we started writing car displacements on. Did you see
I saw that. Yes. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, now I have to go out there and add a Chevy Sprint to the 1 liter.
0.99. Yeah, it's right above the 600. I almost bought whatever S600. I saw one. I was like, what? I stopped the guy. I'm like, what is this? And he told me what it was, and he bought it down in the Colorado Springs. I started looking at those. I'm like, I like Hondas. I should have one of those. It was hilarious how small that thing was.
Well, Ken made a pickup truck out of the one.
Oh, yes. I saw that, and I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, pickup truck? I didn't think they made a pickup truck. I'm like, that's...
Oh, yeah, no. He cut the back off. It's got a little cap on it. It's a pickup truck. And the best part is he's been working on the V8 Celica, right? The project.
Oh,
so
gosh.
the Pantera has been coming in and out of the garage up there. So when the Pantera comes out, it gets parked right behind the Honda.
Wait, who has this car?
So you get with the Honda 600, Ken Mullenhour.
Oh, okay. I don't know who that is. Okay.
Joey's friend.
Not Monanishi. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
So you get this Honda 600 that's made a pickup truck, and sitting right behind it is a 72 Pantera.
Oh, car people are crazy. That's what keeps it interesting.
Oh yeah, it's hysterical. So when I saw that container, Shelly she threw rags in it with some hydrogen peroxide just to clean the rags, and I just happened to walk by the container and go, "Hey, 7 liters." I'm like, isn't it hard to believe that this is the size of the Corvette engine in displacement? And she looked at it and she's like, "Oh my God, yeah, one Revolution, that's big." So I'm like, "You ought to just write Z06 up there." So then that turned into a whole thing at that point. As soon as the Z06 went on, I'm like, "Well, the Honda 600 has to go way down here."
Way down. Yeah, that's what's even more insane. Yeah, 6.
Yeah, and then it just took on a life of its own. So people seem to enjoy it, but yeah, that's not great, and we're nuts.
Well, I'm glad you got to hang out there so long. Although, like you're saying, it's colder than you would expect. But hey.
Yeah, it happens. All right,
cool,
I'll let you go.
I
will harass Shelly about making sure she gets with you.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll message you all the information I had to make sure it's kind of correct, and then I'll make the intro and go through here. I think I'll do part 1 and part 2. Sweet. You just knocked out 2 weeks for me. I appreciate that.
Rocking. Hopefully, people don't send any hate mail for it.
Oh heck no. Loved it, Sam. Loved it. Thank you, sir. Hopefully I'll catch you soon. All right, bye. Thanks for listening. For the show notes and contact information, please visit autocrosstalk.com. There you can also subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on new shows as they come out. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes for the upcoming shows. You can connect to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autocrosstalk. You can share your thoughts, your insights, your questions, your suggestions there. Also share with your friends. Hopefully you found it entertaining and motivating, and hopefully other people will as well. It's been fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for the next show.